We've been all independently doing a lot of work for years now, but this year we're finally coming together, trying to put this hip hop culture story together internationally, so that way every story is part of the conversation and nobody's left out or overlooked, and that it's taught from the proper perspective. You know, we always say it's one thing for a reporter or a journalist to go into the Amazon jungle and to go study the people that live there and watch them and observe them and then write a book about it and say, this is how they are. The savages do this and their primal nature is this and so on and so forth. But it's a completely different thing when you hear the story from a person that was born and raised in the Amazon, and they tell you about the traditions and the methods and the reasons and the understandings and the principles. That's what we're going to attempt to do here, not only today, but we've been trying to do independently and now collectively from here going forward, telling you the story of hip hop from the culture and the citizens that lived it, that experienced it, that built it, that developed it, that studied it, that honored it, that respected it, and that felt it a passion in their heart and spirit to make sure that it was not only a culture that was captured and talked about, but that is preserved and honored. Just like you hear the Greek stories and the Egyptian stories and the Hebrew stories, we need to hear the hip hop stories. So here we are today. Without any further ado, Brother Emile, tell us a little bit about your journey, your story, how you got started in hip hop, and you know what led up to where we are today.
Hey everybody, yeah, so I first got exposed to hip hop around 1982, and back then we were just copying just the upstanding popping style of dance, and we didn't know the names because we were basically during apartheid in South Africa, so we were under
well, hold
cultural.
on, real quick. Not to cut you off, like 82, when I saw that, that seemed really early to me. Like, you know, it still wasn't in some parts of America yet. How did you guys experience hip hop? How did your involvement in that 82 even begin?
Yeah, so most of the kids back then were either roller skating or copying like some dance, right? And I was fortunate enough to head to a place just inside of South Africa called Lesotho. And because they had access to international video, I got to see someone doing like basically the robot. And so I copied that without knowing that that was actually connected to hip hop culture. I just knew like, this is dope. I want to do this. And as like most kids around the world, like the epitome of cool is Black America, right? And so we were also around that same time watching a lot of what was it called, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 dance steps, right? And this was all, you know, because of the cultural boycott, this was snuck in. People had videotapes that they, you know, they got past customs and they needed to obviously see what's happening in the rest of the world. And this is when I first got exposed to popping. And towards the end of that year, because South Africa is one of those places where they test movies. So this is before the first B-boy movies they had. I remember the first video I saw, I think it was a video by Chic where this guy was doing this, it's called Hanging Out, the song. I'll never forget it because I practiced that for like hours to try and get that flow. And yeah, so it's all these bits and pieces that we would pick up here and there, but we would mix with local, like the local in dance, right? And so this is initially how I got involved in the culture. And initially we didn't know that the culture was bigger than just this, you know, the first was just, oh, it's this dance. And then afterwards we're like, oh, this is connected to that song that was playing on the radio back in the day. Because by that time, my older brother then were listening to, you know, Curtis Blows the Brakes and Sugar Hill Gang's, yeah, their track as well, Rapper's Delight, you know. But we didn't make the connection till way after. And at the same time, also because it was South Africa, the access was very, very limited to all of the elements of hip hop culture, you know. But yeah, in South Africa, there's a huge, especially in Cape Town, there's a huge connection to the sounds of hip hop culture. Our someone's blowing their nose in the background. Our parents were listening to that funk albums, and so whatever hip hop was sampling was actually, listened to by our parents. And because I'm from Cape Town, which is a port city, it's an extremely mixed community, and also very cut off from traditional South Africa, you know. And so it was easier for hip hop to take root in Cape Town because people weren't feeling like it was something that was separate from them, you know. And so yeah, so that's how I got involved back in the day. I started dancing, and then like afterwards, when the movies came in, like was it the first one was Beat Street, that the first one we saw, and then close afterwards was like Breaking, then later Breaking 2. And so, it was like a slow progression to see that what the whole culture looked like, you know. And yeah, and as time progressed, we obviously had to make, in South Africa, there's a struggle that's happening, like the struggle that's happening in Palestine, that you grow up with, So even though you're involved in the struggle, life goes on, There's still like people fall in love, people go to the movies, people play sport, irrespective of the fact that there's a struggle taking place at the same time, so kids were breaking back then, they were involved in battles, or when they had these mass gatherings, people would actually be, while they're waiting for, the speaker, whoever the political speaker is they're sneaking in through the back so that the security police, aren't able to arrest them. You have to wait for like sometimes hours, and during that time that you're waiting, kids are like b-boying, kids are popping amongst each other, there's circles forming, and then back to the reality of the struggle. I actually wanted to play the clip I wanted to play is actually of one of those days, like while we were waiting for the political speaker to come. It was my final year of high school, and this is in a place called Wynberg at Wynberg High. I'm going to try and quickly, access that video so I can. Okay, let me try and find where it is quickly. Yeah, I think it's this one.
Yeah, go ahead, run it.
Am I able to get onto it? Yeah, it's this. 1 second. Yeah, this one. So this is a bunch of kids basically at a school, and then the security police. These are the memories etched in my mind. Won't let me rest until my people's online. The queen is gonna be today, I might die. Cry skies, I hear children cry. Now there be many, many memories that's etched in my mind, but there's one. So yeah, I'm just trying to show you pieces of this is the actual, like I was in this crowd of young people that's actually walking to the school for this gathering, this protest, right? And so while this crowd is waiting, life goes on, and like irrespective of the fact that it's a political rally, like these guys like dancing among waiting while they're waiting, as I was saying. And then suddenly, like, this was actually someone sent me this footage after I actually wrote the song, so I just put the two together in this. This is actually of the actual day, and at the same time that this school event was happening, another protests were happening all over on that very same day, and in both places a huge amount of young people my age were arrested and taken to prison. I'm trying to find the shot that are here. So this is, I'm sitting in the quad, and I'll play you this piece quickly, but this is the security police sneaking in the back to arrest the speaker. The speaker away, hey, for whatever you can find the police's way. They pull their guns and the scene slows down. Canisters of tear gas. So you can imagine, like, from a b-boy battle to to a battle like this. This was 1985 though. So it was like hip hop in South Africa grew up alongside the anti-apartheid movement, but it didn't have like didn't have a major impact because we were extremely young, you know. So like a lot of people will say that hip hop contributed to South Africa's liberation, which is not, that's not the truth. You know, hip hop really took root much later with the masses of young people, you know. So it's actually not. There's a documentary called I think it was it called. I think it's called Revolution, Hip Hop Revolution, but it's completely out of context. I think the revolution within hip hop is still to take place because there's a huge amount of young people that are into hip hop now, but it's slowly shifting to them understanding that the illusion of overnight fame and money is an illusion. So you know, it's at that point where I think the conscious MCs will reappear, you know. So that's the context, the background that I come from. So I started b-boying, and then we formed a crew called Black Noise that promoted all the elements. At first, we had all the elements except for DJing. And after I attended Zulu Nation Anniversary in 1994 in New York, I returned to Cape Town and got a DJ involved so that all of the elements of the culture were represented in our crew. And we decided to just tour around South Africa and teach as the culture to as many people as possible. So yeah, so that's sort of my background.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. And again, you know, I like people to know the amount of expertise and experience firsthand that you had. And I believe you also told us that after that, you started working with schools in South Africa. I believe last time we talked, you said there's about 16 schools that you're working with, doing the work, kind of work are you doing with those schools?
Yeah, a lot of the schools that we work in, it's you know, it's the amount of time that we've been in the communities, people actually call us to come to the school, and we try to insist that they make our sessions part of the day. So we don't if they call us to do it after hours, we don't, after school we don't do it because most kids actually rush to get home, you know, because of security issues or gang issues. And the areas we work in, there's quite a lot of, like, you know, gang activity. And so we tend to insist that schools include us in the day's curriculum. You know, they have to give us a session because and at the same time also it secures the fact that the principal and the teachers see the value in like, you know, the practical hip hop education that we share. And we actually created a syllabus that teaches African or First Nation traditions to the kids. You know, the questions of like, who am I? Where am I? You know, how do I fit into the the idea of Africa? What is Africa's contributions to civilization? Teaching sense of self-worth. But I mean, at the same time, it's like you're teaching a kid b-boying, and you, while they're standing in the circle, you're getting them to feel confident enough to stand in the middle, say their name, lift their head, make eye contact with everybody, you know. So it's using what we've learned over the years basically and implementing it at the schools. And the schools, I mean, they see the power of how it changes young people's sense of self-worth, you know. And also it's localized, and that's what they like, I think, mostly. That we combine it with what exists within the curriculum, but also challenging what's in the curriculum a lot of the times.
Absolute. And I think most of us on the call can testify to that also. It's part of the reason why we included a separate, you know, section of our teachings on the virtues of hip hop. Because when you're becoming a b-boy, you have to learn not to get in fights because he dissed you, or an MC. Like, you can't get in a fight because he said something about your mama in a rhyme. So we learn respect, we learn discipline, we learn understanding, we learn confidence, like you said, the ability, communication, to be able to talk and explain what we're doing. All of these are virtues that we learn from teaching these elements and culture. So it's amazing to me how, see, all the way on the other side of the world, how you're using the same kind of information that we use over here, and it's having the same impact on the culture. And in some cases greater, because in some cases when their situations are worse and they have less, this becomes everything positive that they have in their life. And it becomes that true north, that center point, that thing that they look forward to every day or every week to be a part of. So again, congratulations, amazing work. And I think that ties in perfectly to the concept of your book about teaching them from that perspective. So tell us, and what is the concept of this new book, Reconnect Your Strength?
Yeah, I mean the concept of the idea that brought about me writing this book is the understanding that I needed to localize the context, within South Africa, and in the process over the years that I localized hip hop within the context of First Nation expression, I realized that this is the same throughout the world. That the language used in academia is almost contradictory to First Nation pride, And so I was actually busy writing a 4-part book about the history of my crew, Black Noise. When Black Lives Matter movement exploded all over the world, and the first thing that was really burning inside of me is like, okay, two things. One, that we all knew as members of Zulu Nation and a Nation of Islam that this pandemic was coming, right? Because we we understand we were exposed to this information. But what really bothered me is that we were still unprepared, and like that really bothered me deeply. That we are not, and still aren't, a global force to be reckoned with, and to a great extent, hip hop was almost the first global network of young people, and so the fact that we aren't able to utilize that network to share information and change what is happening with people's perception, I immediately thought, how can I expand these ancient concepts and make people realize the connection to hip hop. And so the very first, I thought, let me write about the fact that in truth, Black lives are actually African lives, right? That, the Black life that they're speaking about doesn't start with Blackness, it starts with Africa and Africa's contributions to civilization. And, you don't, when other people label the color, they don't reference the color. And I understand the racial terminology and what Black America has faced. But I sometimes feel like in the global context, especially with what's happening with the potential of the Olympics having a global impact, it will bring with it the culture of hip hop, right? And unfortunately, the culture of hip hop is in the hands of corporates. But if we can supply books that challenges that perception, then we will be able to give people a sense of self-worth and worth for the African experience, which I feel globally is almost the same negative perception that people have of Africa, because they aren't exposed to Africa's contributions to civilization, and even in Africa it's the same, So that's one of the main reasons why I decided to write this, so that we can start asking the questions. And I kick off with in the very first chapter, I speak about the illusion of nothingness. And what they've successfully done and transferred to us is for us to say, we built this from nothing, which is the biggest lie ever, because nothing comes from nothing, right? And what it also does, it negates our ancestry. The people in the South Bronx come from a rich heritage of First Nations, and they don't come from nothing. So when I see them form a circle, immediately I think of circles, of ancestral circles throughout the world, where people sat around a fire, right? And where people, when they sat around this fire, they brought stories, they brought the day's hunt, they spoke, everyone was equal. The power of the circle is, for me, and there's a fire, so the power of the circle is illuminated, right? And so what it also made me question is our sense of birth, right? And if I think about, from the first time I came to the US, there's been this fight amongst elders about who was first, like who did what. And a big part of that is that negation of its nothingness. When they say it comes from nothing, it's like almost insulting all of these elders who are now feeling like, if they say it's nothing, then I got to fight that I can tell you that I contributed, that it is something. And for me, that is a very powerful tool used by white supremacy to make people of color feel constantly like they have to prove themselves. and ironically also to posture that they did something even if they didn't, and it's unfortunately it's a learned behavior. So that generation are not looked at by the next generation, who then when they teach the next generation don't look at the ones who taught them with respect, because the very first people that were doing it are not looking at who was before, are trying to grab that sense of like, it's me, I did it, I must get the respect. When in actual fact, if you look at, and this is one of the things I found when I did the research, is that the Bushmen, when someone went and they killed an animal, the community will make fun of the animal and say, oh, that was a really, even if it's like a massive, they were like, yo, that was a small kill, dude. You didn't do it as well as you thought. So they try to bring the person down to size, that it's a collective effort, and in the back of their mind, they also knew that the women and the children were the ones that gathered 75% of the food. So it's not that they were hunter-gatherer, they were gatherer-hunter. But because of white dominance and like this male patriarchy, they speak in the terms of putting hunting first. And also because they're selling meat to the population of the planet, right? So it's again like all of these things about nothingness is related to who's telling our story. And also the intention of why they're telling the story the way they're telling it, So that I try to, in the first chapter of the book to, show the parallels even between Cape Town and the South Bronx. Because in Cape Town, there's an entire population of people who are told that they don't belong. Like I come from a community that's mixed, and so they say that you don't belong here, you're not even African. And if you think about African Americans, you have the same, like, yo, you don't belong here. And, Black Lives Matter reminded me of that very struggle, that very, sense of like, I'm not from here. I'm not, even though if you look at America, all of what is America is based on the back of people that have, forcibly put in the work, so African Americans or Africans have contributed to this country's economy, this country's, what the world sees America as is based on what African Americans have done, And so for me, it was important to write. And when I say in chapter 1, I speak about like this, to change the perception of ourselves. It's like we perpetuate their words. Like when they say that it's nothing, then we say, you'll find like people, old school characters would be like, yo, we made this happen out of nothing. And you're like, yo, stop repeating what others told you, Think about yourself as someone that is not just about when I was born, but I come from lineage, I come from greatness. I'm not from nothing, I'm from everything in actual fact, So that was my first like sharing. And what I've since done is like chapter 1, by this next Friday, I'll decode what I wrote, because I find a lot of times academia is encoding what hip hop creates, but they don't decode it by putting it back into the hip hop culture. So these guys I work with are going to take what I wrote, create rhymes, create sketches, poetry, and make it available in the community every Friday. So for me, it's like, it's again like we are boundless, but we are sold this idea of nothingness. And I'll end up on the first chapter about this idea of nothingness. When a bushman and just the average person stand on the edge of the desert, they see abundance by looking at the animal tracks, by looking at the weather, by looking at, the way the trees grow, where the shrubbery is, where the food is. All we see through our lens is what we have been taught. So we look at desert as nothing, right? So it's a very well planned idea of making you feel through their words and how you learn via education or your location, your perception of your worth, So I think so. Yeah, my first chapter is about like this idea of nothingness. I think I'll stop at each end of each chapter, so maybe you can have some conversation.
Definitely. No, that's perfect. I think, many of us would agree, a lot of us have taught that, while this culture, specifically hip hop, started in the Bronx in the 70s, all of the elements existed before they were brought together by the pioneers. So that's from the emceeing, from the circles, from the cipher, from the ways of dancing, from, the drums, just the drums themselves, can go way back. The drawing and pictures on walls can go way back. And I think it's a great reminder and a great point to remind ourselves that we didn't just make it from nothing. Even though they left us with nothing in the Bronx, we tapped into our primal, tribal, indigenous culture in ourselves and brought it to life. I'd love to hear other people's feedback and thoughts on that.
Yeah, let me push back a little bit.
Go ahead, brother.
Emile. Oh man, I love you, brother. I love everything that you have to say, and it's imperative that I say that first. I love your perception. I love your ability to give such context to the discussion coming from Cape Town and South Africa and all through Johannesburg. Of course, we can go on and on. But I want to say this to you. I just want to give you something to consider and think about. And it's really to kind of build on what Prism just said. And being African American, being Native American as well. My father's mother was a Choctaw Native. And so I grew up in that. I don't know what the media is doing there, but just to build on this story, this weekend is the 100-year anniversary, if you will, of the 1921 race riots and bombings that took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's where my father's family, that's where they're from. So my great grandfather experienced a lot of this, and I've kind of grown up. I say this because what I'm really pointing to is just to, again, add some context to help you to think and consider. One of the things that is out of nothing is the unique experience of certain cultures, specifically Black and Native, here in this country. That is particularly unique. And out of it, we were left with less than nothing, you see? And so I love your approach to being able to deconstruct, if you will, this circumstance so that you do add context or more greater context so people can be, able to feel connected in some regard. But also remember, we as hip hop citizens on most levels were even ostracized by our own families. You see, by our own loved ones as well. And so similarly to the unique experience of Black folks in this country, because we were taken through a dehumanizing process and lived. See, no other ethnicity, no other culture has that unique story that actually went through this oppressive, dehumanizing process that's still in effect today and running the world, right? And pulling the levers and what's going on in the world. So I just say this because it was in the study and in doing the history of myself, KRS-One, we really did a deep dive in the elements and being able to broaden that understanding and information about where they come from, but more importantly, how they came together. That was unique. That was unique. And I'm not so sure, and I don't want you to be sure anymore either. This is really why I'm saying this. I don't want you to be so sure that the only or even the primary reason that you hear that, right, is because they feel disconnected from the elders and have a disdain even. Now, some do. I'm not going to even front. Some do. That is real. But as a collective, as our cultural pioneering cell, if you will, I don't want you to be so confident that that is the case. There's actually a little bit more depth to that story. And one component of it is that we're still fighting it. You see?
Yeah.
So I just add that.
Yeah. But I also want to make clear that for me, it's to see it within the context of a global migration of people, and what is actually like the biggest genocide that is ongoing has been with the oldest people in Southern Africa since or in Africa generally, since they arrived. So it might sound that like people got independence and all of that. So it isn't specifically, with the slave trade that this happened. It happened everywhere on an ongoing basis on all of the coasts where Europe was involved, right? And so when I say that I'm not discounting what the experience is specifically here, but I'm trying to look at the experience within the context of a global experience, because the oppressors didn't only do what they did in the United States, they did it everywhere on the planet, and it's important that, and it's very important that we expand our view of this network of oppression, because it is a network of oppression. Like Anglo-American and De Beers is Anglo-American. It's British, it's European, and it's American that are exploiting Africa in all of these mines and diamond fields, and now with cobalt and for all of this minerals that's happening on an ongoing basis throughout the world, And so within that context, and not to make anybody's struggle any less anywhere, is actually why I try to look at what are the commonalities of this fight that we are fighting, and at the same time also to be very, and I'm extremely careful when I'm writing this, to not say that, to forget where it started, or to forget what happened in the South Bronx. And in actual fact, that to me is one of the most powerful moments and time periods, I shouldn't say moments, but time periods for us to reawaken. I think when I say that there was this idea of nothingness, it's also economic. It's their words. It's not our words. It's not our words of nothing. You know what I mean?
It's perception, right? It's perception. Exactly. And I have to go here, but I really need to get you my work. I think you, of all people, will feel so rejuvenated and so validated in what you are speaking, because you are basically also referencing arguments from my work, Peace in Time of War, because I use this very backdrop that we're discussing right now to, in fact, talk about how many of these methods were, developed and created here and then exported to the world through American foreign policy. Yeah. But other countries also, right? Other European countries did this. All the colonizing imperial monarchies and such did this. And so again, not to, take away from what you're saying, I'm just adding because again, just like when, like for example, when we talk about the South Bronx, right, being the birthplace of hip hop, even that is under dispute. And the reason it's under dispute is because the reality is there were other things and there were other parties and there were other, ciphers happening in Brooklyn. Yeah. There was ciphers happening, and it's fact, but the way the story and the narrative was created. And so I say what I was saying only to add and not be so confident in the sense that I'm just sharing. There is more to this, and it fits directly into exactly what you're saying, not to take the African-American struggle and play this game of zero sum. No, because you're absolutely right. That is how we're connected. We're connected by this oppressive order, but we are connected because more people have adopted and subscribed to it because of all of the facets and manners of its disguise. Yes. So again, I love what you're saying. I so need to get you. We have much to discuss. We're talking about joining forces and being able to create and a band, if you will, of scholars who can in fact begin to present this work from the perspectives that each of us are published in doing. It'd be a very, very powerful, powerful lesson. But first, we need to know each other's work. That's just one of the things I'd like to say. We need to become familiar. And so I really appreciate your time. And I know I can speak for everyone on this call. And I haven't even looked at the participant number yet, but I'm sure I can speak for all of us. We so appreciate being able, to have this time with you and hear. One of the things that you said, I definitely want to talk on, we can table it for later, but I just want to mention it. I'd really like to discuss more deeply with you about that era in the early 80s where the tapes and shit was coming in, getting past customs and such, because that's very similar to the way tapes and mixtapes started here in the US. I'm from Chicago. I'm not from New York. You know what I'm saying? But I moved to the East Coast in 1979. You feel me? And so then that's how I got swept up in it. And then a few years later, I met KRS-One and 86, 87. You know what I mean? Wrapped up in all the drama and so on. But again, I love what you're saying. I really want to continue that conversation in these other veins. Definitely. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
Definitely. And we definitely want to get you authors together, especially, the three that I have on the call, at least three of you, because we're looking at this curriculum, this talk, and we want to, like I said, like he said, be familiar with each other's work so we can reference it when we're having these conversations, because it makes it so much more powerful when it's not just something that you said and you're hearing for the first time. When you say it and you can reference 2 or 3 other books and scholars that are also saying it, it brings validation to that. So definitely we will be doing that soon. Fats, definitely, this is why I invite you and I have you on the call. I want you guys to be part of this conversation. Go ahead. Or either Emile or does anyone else have any comments or questions or statements?
Can you hear me at all?
Peace. Oh, yeah. Tracks V. What's good, brother?
If you can see me, I can't see myself. It's my second time on Zoom, so I'm not familiar with this.
It's all good. We can hear you though.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool with everything he said. No, I'm down. Everything he said was Chris. You know what I mean? I respect that. Unification is the only way forward.
Exactly.
True. And where you calling from, brother?
Canada.
Oh, nice.
Canada. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Pleasure.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I about like the concept of nothing. I was reading this book. I think I forget the name of the book. I suck at remembering names, but I think it's something for realists. Damn. But in the book, the content or the context of this story this guy tells is when they do a study on a group of people who are farmers, and they do a test before the harvest come in, and they do another test after the harvest comes in. And the people generally do better when they have enough food and they feel secure. And so what he was trying to tell in that story is that when we are confident and we feel that we are enough, or we are worthy, then we excel in what we do. So when someone tells us constantly, if you think about the news, that shit's just bad news. Being in the US has blown my mind about the way that news is being told. Like, Jesus Christ, it's like the end of the world every few seconds. This is crazy. But what I'm saying is that if you're bombarded with negativity, then it's almost normal to speak negatively about your community and about yourself and your people, because you are made to believe that is the norm. And so when we internalize their conversation, we don't see the good majority. We don't see that the masses of the people are good, right? And it's ironic because in my next, in chapter 3 of my book, I speak about the power of the circle. And what we don't realize is that the circle not only empowers someone to go in, it's the clapping of the hands, which is, again, ancestral. These ancient circles, in that clapping, people were driven into trance, right? People were driven into healing, right? And so the power of the circle is ignored. And if you look at us here, we are a global circle. And often our focus is on the person in the middle. And then we give a light to shine to that person, and we empower that person economically. But they come in, they sign that person, and they're like vacuum, suck up all the energy and all the wealth from that community. And so for me, it's like the circle need to look back at itself, at its numbers and its power, because they made all they do is, aside from sucking out the energy, is they bombard the circle with negativity about how the circle can't do it without them, how the circle is nothing, that, you know, all of that negativity they reflect, and we don't see the power we have, you know. And so connected to the nothingness in truth. And I say nothingness, I keep thinking of this movie. I don't know if you remember The Never Ending Story. It was a weird ass movie.
Of course. I think everybody on the phone.
The nothingness is growing. I almost feel like that's what's happening these days. But let me go back in chapter 2. Another important thing that I see, that I learned from Zulu Nation, right? When I first was exposed to like the handshake, where like grabbing someone and pulling them close, you can feel if that's bullshit or if that's real, right? And I find like when I travel, that it's people of color that will look you in the eye and greet you. And it's very rare that I see that happening everywhere. Like I've traveled to Europe, fucking people don't look at you. They like just ignore you. In South Africa, white folk don't make eye contact. And even if they make eye contact, they don't greet, right? And in the book, I make the parallel between First Nation people who, if you look at the Zulu says Sayabona, and Sayabona is I see you. So I acknowledge you and the God in you. I see the God in you. And my acknowledging you is that I see your value, your worth. And so within the context of hip hop, I found that often that energy, that transferal of energy of like pulling someone closer, you can tell and immediately see that this is someone that's on the same wavelength and wanting to share change, and also acknowledging your struggle and your suffering, right? And acknowledging your humanity. And so the question that I asked in the book is, and I use an example of when I was walking on the beach in Cape Town, I did an experiment. I was like, let me see how many people greet me. And none of the white people on the beach greeted me, right? And I was like, what is this shit about, right? And so I posted something online like, I don't understand this. Like, this is like 15 years, a couple of years ago into South Africa's liberation, and still these people won't acknowledge us. If I had a dog, they'd come and greet the dog, but they wouldn't greet me. And so what is this about? And in the conversation with people, this friend of mine, the white guy, he's like, I see this only because I hang out with you guys. I never saw it before, but now I see it. And I see it because I'm your friend and I didn't think about it before. And he was breaking down that once they admit and see your humanity, they have to face the years of oppression and exploitation that their ancestors and family have forced upon you. And that shit blew my mind. And I don't know, like I had to share that because I thought in order for us to bring about change, and I see it changing amongst young people within our community that also don't make eye contact with each other and also don't greet and also diminish each other's value, which I think, if I think of First Nation people in South Africa, if you drive, and if you ever, like if anyone's made it out there or come out there, if you drive between cities and you see a guy walking, he will wave at your car. It is his nature to greet. It is in the language, the Creole language spoken in Cape Town, Kaaps, they say a groet is a moet, to greet is a must, And so I put it in as the initial way of how I see potential change to take place. It's for you to look at someone, see the God in them, and acknowledge their presence, their godly presence. And so I don't know, I'll leave it at that, and just want to hear if anyone else has a similar experience.
I'll comment on that. I can testify to the strength of not just, the Zulu Nation teaching the greeting, but the knowledge of self that it taught us and confidence in our history. That before that, and most of us can agree with this, growing up in New York, when you're walking down the street Either you're trying not to make eye contact with anybody, or you're almost looking at people like daring them to make eye contact with you. Like, I wish you would stare at me, you know what I mean? And it was after learning that knowledge of self, and that this culture came from our ancestry, and that we are the guardians and the teachers of it, that we walked a little taller, and we walked looking, making eye contact. So when we saw people on the street, when they look at us, we say peace. And that greeting stuck with us, because from the beginning, they know you're not an average person. So, and it's like I said, the word itself has power. You know, so when you're walking and you make eye contact, somebody could be stressed or frustrated or thinking about something, you say peace, they look at you like, oh, who's that? It automatically strikes them as somebody that has knowledge of self, a God body, a 5%er, you know, a nation member or something. And it strikes a certain chord that calms them and makes them think twice about, if you were somebody else and you said, what's up? They might be like, what you looking at, right? But when you say peace, they're like, peace, what's up? It strikes them a minute. So I can testify to exactly what you're saying. And also about when you're walking with a dog. I could be walking down the block by myself and 10 white people will walk by me and won't say anything. But let me have a dog. They're like, oh my God, look at the little dog. He's so cute. What's his name? They don't care what your name is, what they want to know about the dog, you know? But I remind us all too that this is not, you know, racism. We spend a lot of time talking about racism, but racism is just one form of prejudice, right? Prejudice is on classism, it's on colorism, it's on your religion, it's on whether you grew up on the east side or the west side, whether, you know, your mother looks like this or your father. So prejudice comes in many forms. And I remind us all that we've seen it even in, I always reference the movie Spartacus, right? In the movie Spartacus, we see white people enslaving other white people. And by the prejudice, the classism that they say they're savages, they're uncivilized, they don't deserve the land that they have. We're going to go rescue them from their own starvation and being poor and fighting and whatnot. And we make them slaves and soldiers in their army and whatnot. Native Americans enslaved other Native Americans, Africans enslaved other Africans, you know, South Americans enslaved. And it's part of this prejudice that we create in our mind, that we refer back to the ego, that dark side that gives you a reason to say they're less than I am. So it's okay to treat them like less than I am. But I'll treat the dog better than I treat the person. All of these are just different forms of prejudice. And it's one of those things where, for me, I remind us that it's not just white people, Black people, Jewish people, Chinese, Asians. They've had histories and wars of enslaving each other, you know, Chinese, Japanese, Thai, so on and so forth. But it's one of those things that when we realize it's that dark side nature of man that exists, this is what we're using hip hop to overcome. And yes, we're using it for these cultures that are called minority or indigenous or ethnic, but it's because they are not getting the same access to this kind of information as the other cultures or as the other classes, you know, where they go to the high prep schools and they learn finance, emotional intelligence and balance and psychology and these things. And we just get multiplication, addition, and the same history over and over again for 12 years. Like, we learn about Columbus every year until college, you know? And meanwhile, they're learning science and mathematics and history and globalization and finance and, you know, business building and corporation. And we don't get that unless we present it to ourselves, you know? So I think that goes right with what you're saying in the topic of why we're doing what we're doing, but also to the fact that when we greet each other, when we see each other, let's not be like the others that put a label on a person as soon as we see them, but let's see them as a spiritual being, our brother, our sister, here in the same struggle that we are and unaware of it. And that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I try to look at as many things that are both, you know, elements of hip hop culture, but also just, you know, the humanity of what is created with the culture, you know. As I was saying, like in chapter 3, I speak of the circle's power, and both not only amplifying who's going to the middle, but also the ability that the circle has to see its own power, which at the moment globally isn't utilized at all, you know. And I mean, if you think about it, we were speaking about this before. Imagine we actually utilized hip hop's power back in the day already, how different things would be, you know. And a lot of that's about action, right? It's like to take those steps of action collectively, you know. And we have, to a great extent, in some places done that. If you think about events like Battle of the Year, or you think of, I'm using b-boy examples there. So Asia One and Easy Rock's b-boy summit. Now, this is extremely powerful, potentially powerful b-boy events, you know, and by action brought people from around the world, like two events in different countries. The only problem that we didn't realize is if we had Airbnbs, if we had cars that we could fetch them at the airport and have our own Ubers, and we had our own hotels where they could stay, then the money from hip hop would actually rotate in hip hop and not like we funding everybody else's agenda, you know. So for me, again, that circle is not only about amplifying the person in the middle, but the circle is also needs to look at itself and like question how powerful has it been in the last while, you know. So yeah, and then I go back to actually looking at the circle as the place where the hand clap came from, and how the hand clap became like hand clappers from the heartbeat and the drum, and how the cyclic sounds that you hear ancestrally was almost recreated with a DJ. You know, they took the break beat and looped, and the loop is nothing but that ancient loop that hey, 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 hey. It's a loop, right? And again, it's happening within a circle, and so you can look at elements developing from that, where the cyclic sounds also draws the dancer, draws the person into the circle, draws the fire that happens into the circle, you know. So the sound manifests, right? It's because of that sound that people went into trance, that cyclic sound, you know. And so I from that connection, the DJ, and from that connection, the b-boy, who I remember in Freshest Kids, Herc says they broke. It looked like they weren't there, right? Like they went. And when I heard it, I was like, yo, that sounds like going into trance. Like in that moment, the person becomes the beat. The person's body is played by the music, right? And so for me, like when I make the connection to First Nation expression, I see a bigger potential that the circle actually has. Is also about healing. That in that moment, the healing takes place, you know. So the b-boy is also about the trance dancer for me. And it's ironic because in house they teach you this jacking action, and the First Nation people call this jacking action the shortening and the extension of this line, right, in your body. And they do this as they in their state of trance. They believe that they're climbing and connecting what's in the sky to what's on earth. So they're bringing down the sky. That's what they're calling. They call it ropes to God. So they say that they're climbing this rope and at the same time pulling down the ancestry so that everything happens simultaneously. They're calling on their ancestors basically to be present. You know, so they believe the ancestors never leave them whenever they're going to dance. And when they dance, this healing takes place, you know, bringing a presence of another world onto this one. And if you think about it, then like we are historically is what we've been doing, right? Like whether it be the MC chanting and like the preacher, like just making up words and or James Brown, and like making sounds in that moment is almost the exact same thing of what is happening when people go into trance, you know, catching the fire, catching the spirit, you know, going into the zone. These are all moments of trance that is, if you ask any First Nation around the world, they can like testify to that experience, you know, which is, and it's ironic because like that same thing is vilified by the church. The church is like, no, that's possession, that's, which is, and then the same church will be having people speaking in tongues. You're like, wait a minute, where did that shit come from, you know? So yeah, so I try and in the book also make those comparisons and use examples from other people's, you know, First Nation studies that explain this journey to another realm, you know. Anyway, leave it at that. Any ideas or comments?
Definitely. No, yeah, you said it. I was gonna say in the zone is how we refer it. And I mean you see it in boxing and basketball and dancing and singing. When they're in the zone, you can feel it. It's the type of thing that makes your hair stand up, which we teach is a spirit, recognizing a spirit fulfilling its purpose. When you hear somebody singing that perfect song with all their emotion and heart and it makes the hair stand up, that's your spirit recognizing their spirit fulfilling its purpose, and that they're in the zone, they're in that trance, they're in that state. And it's something that's primal and tribal. Like you said, the church will try to classify it. If it's not directed in the church at Christ, they'll say it's, wicked. But the truth is, we're connecting to that source energy, whatever we call it, however it connects to us. I love to hear other people. Anyone else comment? Brother Fat, Brother Malik, Brother Malik Matthew, Trey D. I mean, honestly, I usually take that you're doing a great job of breaking it down, and they're engaged. Just a quick reminder: do you have a image of the book that you can share so they can see, or you have the book itself yet?
Yeah, this is the copy of the hard copy
And
of the book.
we are going to be adding a link to the chosenzulu.com affiliates page. I haven't put it up yet, but we will be putting it up there. But until then, for the people on the call, where can they or how can they get that book?
Yeah, I mean, I've been posting most of this week. I've been posting hard copies to people. If they want to get the PDF, I can, I'm selling it, just posting it to people, and I'm actually encouraging people back home to, if they want to sell the PDF and make some money for themselves, to go in and do that. For me, it's about getting this conversation going. To get, because also as I was writing and got other people to read it, like new ideas and new connections, and now speaking to you guys, I'm also hearing other sides of the story that needs to be added to the story, and I feel like that's what's necessary in the scene, is just everybody to tell their story, that we can get a complete story eventually, and the process is like, not only are you sharing, you're also learning in the process, and I'm always open to learn, so yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if no one has any comments or questions, we can move through it. And again, he's just giving you guys a brief intro of what the book is about. So don't think by any means that we're hearing him talk here, oh, that's great, I don't need to get the book. Just like, with Brother Fats and Brother Malik One, we're giving you an introduction to what the book is about, but we encourage you to read the book so you can be more informed. And again, just these 3 books alone, one of the teachers, David Wood, a life coach of mine, teaches if you read the top 3 books on any subject, more than 85% of the planet, you're now equipped to be a specialist, somebody that can speak on this topic knowledgeably that other people don't have. So with just these 3 books we're talking about here, it's a great wealth of information that gives you more knowledge than most people learn. So again, we want to introduce you to the book so you know the value of what's contained in it, but we encourage you to get it, and not just to get it to say you got it, but to actually read it and give him feedback. So for those that don't know, he has like 8 Facebook pages. So if you just Google Emile on Facebook, any one of them is going to have the link to the book, and we'll also be adding it to the website shortly.
Yeah, I'm messing with the algorithms, man.
I hear you. You got to do it. I feel you. I'm learning from you, man. I'm learning from you. I'm watching you. All right.
Yeah. So just to run through like some of the other chapters, just ideas that I shared, like in I said the hand clap, and then there's the the b-boy, the trance in chapter 5 about the b-boy and the healing, and the fact that I still do this. I still take my shoes off and walk bare feet, and I learned to play capoeira as well. So that circle extends beyond just like the b-boy circle. I understand, like with live drumming, and actually like when you play capoeira, you take over the berimbau and you take over the drum, and so you play the instrumentation and also play in the circle. And it's taught me that not only are you interpreting what the music is playing, but you also try to become the music. And when you're playing live instrumentation, it's a whole new different soundscape, because you're able to increase or decrease the intensity. But in capoeira as well, there's an elder who's always watching the circle to keep the darkness out, which is a First Nation thing as well, to stop someone who's militia, his anger is too much. So there needs to be an elder to make sure that the energy that's coming into that circle is held and usher out the negative energy when it's observed, and so the next chapter that I have is the storyteller, And I mean, most people are speaking about this, the griot tradition, and even before the griot tradition, there was the passing on of the knowledge of the village to the next generation, you know. And if you can think about that circle and think about like the story being told of the day's hunt, about the lived experience, and then think about our kids today being told stories from outside of the circle, like not our own stories, like the light that's in the middle of the fire is now a television telling someone else's stories to our community, you know. So our power has been removed by, it's not beaming into our communities, it's in a certain extent sucking out the worth of our community and making our community want to be what it sells us, what it shows us, you know. And so in the storyteller, I try to expose a deeper conversation about keeping the darkness out, having the light shine from within, not just in the middle of the circle, but from within the person. In order to get there, you need to have a sense of self-worth. You have to feel the sense of being enough, you know. So that I touch on about the voice and the ability of the voice to manifest whatever's the thought, right? Which is, again, often we don't realize as MCs that, you know, not only like when I do a rhyme, but I can also write a book, and my rhyme can also become a play, you know. Or become a short story or a documentary or a full-scale movie. That our words have power, that our thoughts have power if we manifest those thoughts. You know, I mean, biblically, in the beginning was the word is made man. They're like all these, I mean, Tupac and Biggie spoke of, you know, or in the scene they're speaking of violence, and that violence is amplified by a system that wants to see the destruction of Black people. And it's, again, the power of the word, but how the word is amplified and who's amplifying the word for what purpose, you know. So I touch on that in the storyteller and the MC, and that essentially, like, we have power, but we aren't manifesting the power for the circle, you know. So I come back to the fact that we have this collective ability to heal ourselves, you know. And then in chapter 7, I touch on rock art and aerosol art, and how I mean, two main things. When I spoke to the Bushman elders, they were saying that they don't write on the rock, they write into the rock, because what they are drawing is multidimensional. They're actually still in trance when a lot of them are drawing. They're not only telling the story on the rock. So you'll see that often there's a string from an animal's mouth or a person's mouth going into a crack, and because it's actually projecting that it's not just on this one-dimensional image that you see, but it's actually beyond the rock as well, you know. And often, as when I speak to writers, they often speak about that. They also, like I said before, going to the zone where they're in front of the wall, so they have to almost project themselves back to see this piece as a whole fitting onto the wall, you know. And so it's and then the other thing that I mentioned in the rock art section is, if you think about, often they say things like, you know, the first written word is papyrus, and, you know, or on the pyramids. But like, then what is this? Right. If this isn't writing, then what? You know, they're telling stories onto rock, right? So it's, again, who chooses where this high culture started, and how did it get there, and what was before it, and how old is the journey to get there? You know, most people that speak about the pyramids don't know that there are more pyramids in the Sudan than there are in Egypt. And the pyramids in the Sudan are all like laying sideways and shit. And like, so it's proof that people tried and error over time, you know, that this can be traced back, you know. And so for me, it's about being willing to take that journey back, and to give the people who laid the foundation the credit that they deserve, you know. And so with this aerosol art conversation, I also say, but then if I wrote on the rock and you come to me, even though my ancestors don't believe in the ownership of land, is that writing on the rock not proof that that land belonged to me? Like, you come with a piece of paper that say you own the deed. Like, that piece of paper came long after my ancestors wrote on the rock. How can you say that that is owned by you? So it's, again, it's a question about land ownership. It's a question about legitimization of laws that legitimize your theft of the land. And then the question is, the law itself is based on theft of land and ownership and property, and that land is illegally obtained. So the law itself is illegal because it's based on theft, right? And so, you know, this is just like asking those type of questions so that, you know, my wife's a lawyer, so she hates that I bring up that question, because it sort of dismisses the law and what the law is trying to do, you know.
Right.
So
Because
yeah.
one day we want to own land, so we gotta abide by those laws that are illegal and stuff, you know. So
You know, but you know what? It's actually speaking about a situation that has complexities, right? And to be able to better describe and break down and deconstruct those complexities into elements so that they are, you know, able to be understood on basic levels has value. Now, the basis of what the law is stemming from, absolutely. This has to be something that is conscious in the mind of those of us who embrace this kind of conversation, you know, which goes back to the ancient, you know, Kush dynasties who influenced what we now know as Egypt, obviously, even all the way back to their first dynasty. Sure, Emile will chime in on that. But again, you know, a lot of this information, what I'm really interested in is us being able to employ it, right? To take the absolute value of understanding how far we are all connected, but more importantly, what it is that we can do with this information. So I just throw that out to the group. Just throw that out to the group, you know, about employing. That's where I'm at. And I'm looking for any one of you who is ready to join us. Any one of you, because that is why I am here. Join us, because we need your role to be fulfilled, and no one else can do your role but you, no one else. So I just throw that out to the group.
True. I'll make a quick statement to it, a reminder. There have been a few cases recently around the world, actually, where the Supreme Court has admitted that the land was illegally obtained from the Amazons and gave them the rights back. All of a sudden, mysteriously, right after they won these cases, the fucking Amazon caught fire, and nobody knows why. But, you know, suspicious. 3 different cases where they won the rights back to their land. All of a sudden, there was mysterious fires on their land. And also recently, I believe in Oklahoma, that was also declared that a large portion of the land that they were disputing was awarded back to them, and they're setting up time arrangements. So these conversations are becoming more prevalent, especially, you know, in the legal, you know, venue, where these realizations are starting to come to light. Again, it's on people like us and groups like ours to make this more of a common conversation, so that there's more voices in this conversation, in this statement, so that way it can be addressed correctly. So great point, great information.
Yeah. Now, I think in Watson, I mean, in South Africa, there's been a huge movement by, you know, I actually participated in a national program to travel to the First Nation communities to perform I don't even know the Boal technique of doing a play. It's called Theatre of the Oppressed. And so basically we took this concept and we performed to all of the First Nation communities, like, you know, and then they could interject and show ways of like finding solutions to actually go and do a land reclamation, you know, and get back portions of their ancestral land. Problem is that the South African government obviously starts the handback at a time after a certain point, so people can benefit still from ownership of land, right? Or illegal ownership of land. And 80% of the land in South Africa is still owned by white people in South Africa, you know. So this conversation, like when we put it into effect, a lot of the young people that attended were the first time that they were like, oh shit, like these b-boys are here, these MCs are here. And because we were talking about it, so suddenly they were like, yo, let me find out more. How do we as young people step forward to go and tell our parents and our grandparents to it's time to actually get this land back, you know? And so it's interesting that because of hip hop, there's this, you know, like eye opener to young people to something that they were like, this is not for me, this is for the elders, you know? So yeah, so that was one example. The other example was they were trying to build close to where I live, there's this water, this massive lake, and it has First Nation history. And so we like pulled together the community and did a song. This place is called Princess Flay, because they were going to build a mall on the edge of the, like this massive fucking mall on the edge of the waterway, and like just like basically pollute the space. And using that song, traveled from school to school, got the kids to rally behind us, and we like blocked them from trying to do this. And so they eventually caved in. They made the land a heritage site, so they're not allowed to touch, they're not allowed to build anywhere around it.
Right.
So, you know, and again, once we stepped in using hip hop, the young people were mobilized. It wasn't just, oh, it's these old people talking about old shit, apartheid shit, you know, because that's what they teaching young people, that it's not their concern, you know. Their concern is to funnels and 7-figure crap on on the internet, right? And then, like, because of the ability that hip hop has is to as you were saying, Malik, is that to decode the content so that it's palatable to the generation that's active right now, you know, and find ways to mobilize that community in a way that they feel comfortable to participate in mobilization, you know. So yeah, so for me, like the battle, and that's, I mentioned this in chapter 8, is the struggle, the internal struggle that we have with ourselves is the real battle. You know, like when I'm b-boying against somebody, it's not against you, it's actually for me to push my level that I can achieve, you know. And so when we teach this to the kids, when we teach them dance, we're the only people doing that. Everybody else is teaching their kids to be the best. You got to be the best. You got to battle. And whenever you enter competition, there's one first prize. There's one fucking gold medal at the Olympics. Like, you know, how many disappointed and like mental health issues do you want to create globally by forcing the kid to want that one thing? You know, and so the question that I had, and also why I brought it up in the book, I actually mentioned the Olympics. You know, I actually mentioned that the necessity for us to actually teach young people that you push yourself in hip hop battle to be the best you that you can be. That's all you can be, you know, and to gauge against other people. That's, you know, that's, and to be okay with them winning this time around or winning every time, you know. But it's within the context of the competition, not within, it's not that they're better than you, it's just that this is a competition that is judged in a specific manner, you know, and it's judged by the element, not by your personality, because people make the mistake of actually, like, they blend everything together. So it's like, I'm not good enough. It's not like, no, you just didn't deliver the best dance on the night, or you know, the dance of skills that you have doesn't measure up. It's not you, because people internalize, whether it be MC battles or, you know, even like some aerosol art battles I've seen turn violent because of the judge's decision, you know. And so it's to ask that question, like, what is this battle? Where is this battle happening? And what's the purpose of the battle? And if I internalize the battle, is it just about checking myself? You know, and if you think about it, it's like this. The same with education. It's this pyramid scheme that only the top few get in, right? Our kids study, and like, irrespective of how good they are, only a few get into the universities. Only a few get to be in charge or work for or get the well-paid jobs, while the masses at the bottom of the pyramid are working, you know, are the pawns in this battle, you know. So it's about rethinking like what this battle is in hip hop that we're talking about, really, you know. So anyway, so that's one of the things that I thought I had to, and also the context we find it in. We find ourselves within the context of capitalism, where its intention is, it's very clear. It's about the 1% oppressing the 99% of the people on the population on the planet. It's not about everyone. It's not like everyone can be the multi-millionaire or the billionaire. You know, it takes the exploitation of the masses to get that type of money, you know. And so I think that I needed to add that conversation to try and change what we see the battle being about in the culture.
Hey, can
I agree.
I chime in real quick?
Mhm.
This is my last one until our next conversation, but I will say this.
What are you doing here?
When we talk about capitalism, when we talk about socialism, when we talk about these concepts and these constructs, we often refer to the corrupt versions of it. Real, true, and genuine capitalism is built on the basic commercial transactions and sales that will take place tonight when people join Chosen or when people purchase Emile's book. Emile, cite the title of your work again, please.
It's called Reconnect the Stream.
Reconnect the String.
Mm-hmm.
We have such great power, but again, when we refer to just the corrupt versions, it's imperative that we first are able to deconstruct that construct so we can better understand the elements to see how, in fact, like in many areas we learn, whether it's history, whether it's science, whether it's mathematics or medicine, there's always been a stealing, right? There's always been a larceny of people's intellectual property, right? And so again, let us consider that there are elements of capitalism that really root and go all the way back to the beginnings of civilization. And those things are healthy. And it is a return to those principles. It is a return to those understandings and those concepts that help us to break down and deconstruct these microcosms and constructs that we are dealing with on our day-to-day life. For all of us who had a job today, for all of us who went to work this week, no matter what it was, if there was some construct that you're dealing with, consider what we are saying. Gain as much of this information because it'll help you to better decode your situation. And for those like me who feel like, well, yeah, I got that covered. Well, look again, because we want you to be better, sharper, tighter, stronger, more equipped, because then it helps us all to better coagulate with one another so that we can strengthen that circle that Emile so wisely, right? And so historically, referred to. And just one other quick point, cultural competency, the looking in the eyes, right? That was always a strange thing for me. I went to the military, I was in the Navy, right? During the first Gulf War, that's when I was in. And learning of different cultures and understanding and being in the medical field, that there are cultures where they don't do that. Not necessarily for the reasons we may assume or think, but just because of the customs and the ways that they, in fact, were rooted in. And so it is imperative for us as cultural specialists, because if hip hop is, which it is, a global community, we as cultural specialists have to be especially sensitive to each and every one of these, areas and these constructs. And again, we better do that. We're better equipped to do that when we master what's happening in our own circumstances and using these principles and employing them in your daily life so that it creates the circumstance that you need to occur so that then you can do what you need to be doing. Emile, man, oh my God, we got work to do, y'all. We have work to do. I am serious. I must check out here. But I am with you all 1000%. Please, let's get together. Prism, we need a one of the executive meetings. We need Emile to get to one of the executive meetings, and we need to deal with that like immediately because too much has happened. Oh, and facts. Much love. We need you in this. We need that. We need that executive meeting with facts, Brother Malik and Emile. In the executive meeting, can we do that? Are we?
Yeah, we'll make it happen. We'll see when they're available.
Good.
We'll make it happen.
Okay, good. Okay, much love, brothers. Let's keep the struggle alive. It is alive because we are alive, breathing it. Right? We are alive, breathing it right here today. Much love, though.
Sure. Peace, brother. I appreciate it. And yeah, just to follow up, piggyback on what you were speaking about, Emile, we teach the same thing. The battle is the battle of self, right? The battle between your higher self and your lower self to become the best version of yourself. You can call it a battle, you can call it a journey, you can call it an experience, you can call it the meaning of life, whatever you want to call it. But that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we're trying to help our people do by sharing this kind of information. We want you to know where you come from, what your potential is, and to become the best version of yourself, and not to equate that with being the winner, right? Because we assume winner with quality. But if you keep progressing each time, if let's say you enter a b-boy battle and the first time you don't even rank in the top 20, but you go home and you see all the moves at the top 10 did and you start learning them and studying them, incorporating them, then you come back and you make it into the top 15, you're progressing. That's a victory for yourself. You know what I mean? And now you know, because of your learning ability, you're able to climb and go higher. So we teach you to look at these areas as the perfect 10, but the perfect 10 is movable, right? So once your goal is to make $100,000 a year, that's my perfect 10. When you get to 100,000, you're like, okay, now I need to make 150,000. It moves as you progress. Your level and capability and potential increases as well. So all of this, everything he's saying, everything we're saying, all coincides with the same battle to help you become the best version of yourself and stop looking at you at a standard that outside society or friends or family place on you, but to look within yourself and see, this is what I really want to do, and I want to be really good at it. What do I have to do? I have to study, I have to practice, I have to research, I have to talk to people that know about this stuff. And this is why we host these kind of meetings, to bring these people that know about this stuff here in person to share this with you, so that, like he said, you can become the best version of yourself. Not the best one of the Olympics. The fact that you made it to the Olympics alone is a fucking victory. You know what I mean? You're representing your culture, your people. One of the top people from your area, your district, is now representing. That's a victory. Where you rank on that system, yeah, it's cool to win, of course, but the fact that you're representing your people is a victory for your people, your culture, your pride, your family, your bloodline, your same parents that have doubted you. Why are you always spinning on the floor, dirtying the clothes? I paid $1,000 for these clothes, you ruin them. And then they see you in the Olympics and they're like, that's my boy. That's my boy. Look at him. I mean, so we have to follow it. They may not understand it in the beginning, but you know what's coming from the spirit and the ego. You know what's coming from your higher self, the good thing to do, the best thing to do, the thing you really want to do and you want to excel at, or the thing that, let me do this for now because it's easier. And these are the things that we're trying to connect you to so you can become the best version of you possible. So I think that's a great point. And it's very important to have it in the book. So I'm glad you did. And even the way you summarized it makes 100% sense. And again, it's one of those things that we as teachers can refer to in your book as another validation of what we're talking about. So thank you for doing so thorough with your work.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the big things about that is to also, make us realize that there are people who have set up events throughout the world prior to, the Olympics, and that understanding that the Olympics realizes the ability to obviously sell viewership.
Right.
That's really why they involved, why they hosting b-boying at the Olympics. And so for me, it's also to ask the question, what is the hip hop scene doing to have people participate in, whether it be Asia One's B-Boy Summit or what's his name, Cross One's, he's gonna kick my butt, freestyle session. So these are events that have been around and set the standard globally. I mean, Cross One's event is throughout the world. They have freestyle session. So for me, it's for us to remember that this has been done. And then the question is like, what's the Olympics putting back? Did we set the foundation teaching kids throughout the world so that they can come and snap up and have people be part of they represent their country? In the meantime, the organizations hosting that have nothing to do with hip hop culture, are not putting a cent back into hip hop culture. And so they should be questioned about, if there's a certain amount of money made, what do you put back to the foundations of developing this in countries where, the people can't necessarily even afford to buy an air ticket to travel to the Olympics, you know what I mean? So I think that is an important question for us to actually start asking as well, and to realize our power to bring about the change, And again, like the conversation about, you're going to win a gold medal, but you from Africa, you have like, the gold is there. Like, why you know what I mean? Actually, the gold is inside, like the internal bling, right? And the question that, again, if you think about the shiny offerings they offered First Nation people throughout, you know, in chapter 9 of the book, I mentioned this about how they've like sold this carrot, the shiny offering, you know, for our skill, for our talent, and made it seem that we are like, you know, if you ask the question of these MCs, why are you wearing all of these, you know, why are you wearing this bling? Is it a reflection of your sense of self-worth? Do you think that your worth is that? You know, I mean, if sometimes I look at it and I'm like, yo, you could have bought land. Like you could have, collectively, we could have bought back Africa, yo. You know, like why are you blinging it up? Why are you buying foreign cars? Why are you giving their money back to them? You know, and so that, I think it's an important thing that I learned along the way, that like, where do you set the goalpost? You know, is it to be part of what is? Do you want to sign a deal? Do you want to win a gold medal? Or do you want to look at like, is this improving my community? Am I teaching b-boys so they could be better people? Am I teaching MCs so they could write about what they see, and that a community support them so that they can survive, and not be like, yo, I'm only b-boying so that, you know, it's a part of my growing up, and then I'm going to find a real job. What stops us from creating a like UEFA style or a global football league style for b-boys? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's on us, the circle, to make sure that it's not just that this kid now has to give up his passion and pursue a 9-to-5. You know, it's on the circle, actual fact, to try and to shift what is happening, you know. And so for me, I use that to, like, the idea of making it. What is making it, you know? And what is the power? What is the power of the circle? And what is enough? You know, am I enough as I am, or is enough out there? Do I constantly have to chase enough? And like, how long am I chasing enough for? You know, again, to come back to First Nation people, they believe like if you gave them something and they never needed it, they'd move on. They'd leave it laying there because they didn't need it. Because as they believed they enough as they were. So it was very difficult in South Africa, for example, for the Dutch to force the Bushmen to work, because they were like, why should I work? This makes no sense. Like, nature gives me enough. Why should I like do some shit for you? And like, when I can get it on my own, because I know where to get water, I know where to get food, I am, you know, completely self-sustained, you know. So I think that comes back to like the idea of like, is the bling the ability to self-sustain you, to the community? You know, does hip hop have that power, or is hip hop going to rely on the system? Because then, you know, then it's going to be what we've been faced with for this long, you know. So yeah, so that I mentioned that in chapter 9, chapter 10, I mentioned the village and the power of a crew and the family, you know, and to like basically change the perception that we have of, like, you know, people look at our collectives and they're like, yo, that's a gang. You're like, yo, when our moms and dads were at work, these kids that we were hanging with was our family, right? They were, I mean, this, and at the same time, also, if you think about the global connect, like, I have family throughout the world thanks to hip hop, right? I mean, all of you here, like, yo, I know someone in Japan, I know someone in, so if they talk shit about someone in Iraq, you're like, yo, don't bullshit me, you know? And like, I in Cape Town, the families are so mixed that everyone has family who's Muslim. So when America was talking about like about Islam, people in South Africa were like, what the fuck are they talking about? They don't know Islam, you know, because it was family. And I feel like, again, to come back to crew and family, when something affects your family, it's very real. And so I think it's about expanding the concept of like family, and for family to be something much more global than what it is at the moment. Is very like, yo, I'm in this little box and I'm fighting for this illusion of a country / corporation, you know. And so like, this is for me one of the like important things for kids who often are alone, that they realize that their crew is their family, and they, you know, that their crew is also where mental health can be assisted, you know, because they maybe don't be able to speak to their parents, but their crew will be able to tell them some extremely important things about growing up, you know. So anyway, yeah, I think I don't know talk too much because there's like so much happening in this book that.
No, you're doing great. I love it, and it's a great, introduction to it. I actually, we have one of the younger brothers on the call that's been, following us for a while, and he actually is a member of the First Nation up around Alaska and the Canada way. So I wanted him to be part of this call because that's what you're speaking about, reconnecting the string to our origins, our ancestry, and how even this culture and the elements come from it. And he's one of those people that experienced it. So I'm glad you were able to make it, Tao. I know you missed a lot in the beginning, but again, the book is the Reconnect the String, which is basically about, some of the conversations we've had, the similarities and the roots of where we come and how we have to bring those cultural roots back into what we're doing now. Like he's talking about the community, the family, the crew. It's not just me for myself, but this is my tribe. You know what I mean? You guys are part of my tribe, and I want all of you to eat. I want all of you to feed. And it's to the point where I think, L1 remembers back around the early 2000s, I did a presentation for the Zulu family saying that we need to be in charge of our own agriculture and architecture and supermarkets and resources for clothing and things like that, so we don't have to be dependent on these malls and these supermarkets, but we can go to the Omega Zulus who have their own garden, not the Minnesota, who have their own garden and providing herbs and things for their community. When we can start thinking on these levels and buying property and land where we can have a hip-hop sleepaway camp, where kids and communities can come and have festivals and the experience of everything that's in the culture. This is what we're aiming for. And again, we were in our 20s when we were having these conversations, but now, like I said before, we're in our 40s. We're in the positions where we can start to bring these things to life. So again, shout out to L1 too. Thank you for joining us. I know you've been in and out, but what do you think so far, brother?
Me, I have to say, I'll bring up.
Go ahead.
If I could say something right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards to, let's say you brought up the Olympics, right? So I'll make a comment towards that and how it could benefit or not benefit, because there's been many controversies. You were saying how was the hip hop in itself responding to it? I would say negatively on a whole, the b-boy community in particular. I equate it to the same thing. If you want to know what would be the benefits, I would say study skateboarding and the effects of before and after its culture. There's been skateboard parks that's been sitting there for millions of years doing nothing. But as soon as skateboarding went into the Olympics, all of a sudden, big time skateboards parks, Tingagwan, all of a sudden this is happening and that's happening, which may or may not profit the skateboarder. But I imagine if breaking was to be treated in a professional sense, a lot more schools would accept it, or a lot more schools would open. I've ran 5 breakdance schools personally, right? I've taught inside McMaster University breaking, right? I've taught many of the people out there that's doing all kinds of things, that's known and doing all, like, did a lot of stuff right now. Like I'm behind a lot of those, right? In the breaking realm, I'm talking. Just like in 1979, when rapping, the elements, rapping got signed to Rapture's Delight, Rapture's Delight, what's it called? Sugar Hill Gang.
Yeah.
But prior to that, rapping was like how breaking is, where you had your events like Cross One's event, freestyle session, you had your Battle of the Years, and you had your Grandmaster Flash doing his thing, and you had your Bam and Flash doing all kind of big things, but it was still not quite when the first record label signed the first thing and it took off to another level that caused it to, which there was negatives that came with that too, so don't get me wrong. There's a lot of negatives that came with that too, right? Like it's not like the rappers is doing its job right now, but it still caused it to be treated more professionally, right? Breaking is not really anything to do with lyrics. That's the good part. So you don't have to worry about them steering anybody in no wrong direction. You know what I mean? And if you get more of the youth involved in breaking, like how the Chinese get, I don't want to pick any race and
stereotype, but no, I was thinking the same thing. I'm with you.
yeah, okay. Do the kung fu, you know what I mean? With the kung fu, if it can be taken to that level of like how just like how you're saying, like a personal level, like you're not trying to be number one, it's like you are training yourself, right? And in breaking, you can channel your anger, channel your energy. A lot of energy will be like, some people go to the gym to lift weights, right? To get rid of anger. So that's what I mean. Some people break. So if breaking is treated more professionally, even though there's going to be people out there trying to profit off it, obviously, just like rapping, I don't think what happened to rapping could happen to breaking, because Olympics only 4 times a year. So that's one event 4 times a year. So you're still going to have your battle of the year doing its thing. You're still going to have your freestyle session doing its thing. You're still, if they stop, that's on them. They don't have to stop for no reason. That if they were to stop because Olympic are one and the thing happens 4 times a year, every 4 years. Every 4 years, you're worried about an event that happens every 4 years. How is that going to steal the shine of everything? You know what I mean?
No, to just explain to you, I know what's going to happen irrespective, right? I know that. But what I'm saying is that what I'm noticing is that the people making the decisions, the bodies benefiting from the funds of these. Yes, there's going to be classes, but there's the same people who ran ballroom classes for many years. It's the jazz classes. It's got nothing to do with the culture. They will just hire some b-boy to fill in at the dance school. My thing is, where the b-boy is creating their own dance school so that they can actually see it as a career and not like, okay, I'm maybe filling for once. You get what I'm saying?
I know where you come from. Yeah, we've been looking at that. That's why, like I said, I ran 5 breaking schools. Dizzy's been working on judging system, and that's why we're trying to work on infrastructure. He's trying to work on the blockhouse. We're also looking at that aspect where if we don't provide our own schools, and that's when, you know, the higher, the more professional breakers, you know, the ones that's more famous and doing their thing, they should be more involved. I don't know why they didn't do a long time ago. I'm just saying, like, this is something. Breaking's 40 years old. Like, for the 1979 rapping took off. That's a long time ago. The same thing with graffiti. Graffiti's in all the clothing and the designs on the clothes. That's graffiti. You know, graffiti on the wall and you know, writing. And then DJing done been making its thing professional a long time, to the point to where DJing, even rock and roll DJing now. You know what I mean? Or breaking is still like, okay, it's way better now. It's way bigger now. Don't get me wrong, but it's still not where. Okay, say like someone says, I want to be a breaker, right? It's still not seen as, oh yeah, that person's gonna be a breaker. It's still seen as, yeah, that's gonna stop at a certain age, because at a certain age it does stop for most people, because it's a physical thing, and some people don't continue to that point. But as they get to that certain age, the older person should have something to fall back on, whether it be instruction, teaching, coaching.
Can I explain what I'm trying to say? Like I'm gonna be 53. I still b-boy. I b-boy because I love b-boy.
Exactly.
I b-boy because it heals me. So when I got involved, like what I'm saying is, there are thousands and thousands or millions of kids who are going to be exposed to this dance without the heritage, without the history, and without the potential that it has to really heal. What it's going to be is about a gold medal and about fighting, because I've been at these other dance competitions, the World Dance Organization. It's about just who can afford. Like the kids that are there are not from the poorest countries in the world, because you have to pay to go to the Olympics. You ultimately, it's going to be on that community to pay. Right? And so what people don't see. What I'm saying is that this foundation has been set by us. And so we need to think carefully about, yes, it needs to be one of the many events. It shouldn't be the beginning and end all. But what I see happening simultaneously is exactly what happens in any other industry. There's a co-option. There's a taking away of what exists. So all of the funding that is going to, say, for example, Cross One or Battle of the Year, will start getting filtered to a place that is non-threatening. Usually the non-threatening place is white. And you might say that I'm being racist, but this is how it has been, because that's where the money is consolidated, right? And so my point is that, yes, it's going to happen, and I know it. We all know it's going to happen. I'm just saying that we should be wary of what b-boying is capable of doing, versus it just being another like, yo, look, I can spin on my head. I can do 50 1990s, or you know what I mean?
But
And
I see the Olympics is only one aspect of breaking. I don't see it as
Right.
I don't see it as everything. Just like rapping, you have the bling rap, and then you have the conscious rap, and then you got the other rap, and then you got the TikTok rap, and then you got the gangster rap, and you know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's the same thing. You got a
but
DJ.
but when commercialism gets involved,
Yep, I know.
90% of the people don't know conscious rap. 90% of the people don't know that hip hop is not just rap music. Most people know only what capitalism markets. And again, to
I think hip hop
Malik,
itself, but I think hip hop people itself didn't spread the message. We tried to rely on the media to do it, and because the media didn't spread the message, we're mad because they didn't spread the message for us, as if it's their responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, so
Well,
that's still like hip
yes
hop
and
itself
no.
supposed to have done that, dealt with that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I can respond to this with this. We got to remind ourselves that through a long human history, thousands of years of human history, a lot of things evolved slowly over time. We have to remember that hip hop is barely 50 years old, right? And most of the men and women that started this, when they started it, they were 15, 16, 17 years old. They had no professional skills, no etiquette, no understanding of how to make this a business or a finance or a management. So we sort of look at that now that, again, they were teenagers figuring it out. We're the ones that came up under them, and we learned more professionally. We learned to incorporate business and management and marketing and how to use TikTok and Facebook and Instagram to promote this. They still don't know how to do that yet. So I say this, from day one, when we start these conversations, we're teaching you what took the pioneers 20, 30, or even 40 years to figure out. Like, they just realized 10, 15 years ago, they need a declaration. You know what I mean? They just realized that, oh, there's 9 elements, not just 4. You know what I mean? They just realized these things because it's still evolving. You know, so what we put together is in one of these ways where this is what we outline. Again, like you said, they had to take the story, they couldn't, they didn't know how. So we have to take the story, and we are now of the age where we can put it out. And this is sort of what we begin with the fundamentals of hip hop. When we talk about the different aspects, which includes the music is one aspect. The culture is another aspect. The industry is another aspect. And the way of life, which is most of us in here, what we practice, is another aspect. But we have to explain that. Nobody else is going to teach it for us. And the pioneers were youth from the streets that many of them didn't finish high school, so they don't have the education or the words to explain these things in this way. But it's from us being wise enough and studious enough to listen to all of them that we can start to put this together in a way that will now make sense to the next generation. And again, we put it together in the categories so we can see the elements of hip hop and outline what they are, the virtues of hip hop, like peace, love, unity, fun, respect, dignity, discipline, the principles, which are the declaration of hip hop, which are the principles and the outline for our culture. They didn't have this in the beginning. They didn't know how to express this. It would come up in conversations like, oh, we need to have a guild and an organization of people that represent our culture. So when the corporations come in, they come to the Preservation Society and they got to deal with them to hire alienness. All the ideas were great, but they didn't know how to implement it. Nobody taught them how to do that. This is why, you know, L1 knows, again, from the beginning, I was like, we are the new era. We are the ones that have to figure this out. We are the ones that have brought it into the schools, into politics, into discussions with the community and the colleges and the community centers. So it's on us to start doing that now. So I don't want to say like, oh, they weren't able to do it and they dropped the ball and they were waiting for somebody else. They didn't know how. They were teenagers that didn't finish high school trying to find a way to make $1 out of 15 cents. You know what I mean? Now it's on us that we have this wisdom and this hindsight and foresight. And this is what we're doing now. This is why I say we don't need to wait for anybody else. I love what's happening with the museum, but I want to make sure that we're in a position that we can influence what is happening with the museum, that we have a voice in what's happening with the museum. And this is a product we do now because a product of these kinds of meetings and these kinds of collaborations. So I think we're all saying the same thing. And ultimately it goes back to what we were saying, or what you were saying in one of the earlier chapters, where we want to find a way to bring these finances back into our community, right? So when we host a B-Boy event, we don't want the Hilton to get booked up and they're making 7 figures off of it. We want, you know, L1's hotel down the block and Sir Malik's Airbnb down the block to get booked up with special discounts. And, you know, the sister that can cook, we want their catering company to be hosting the event so that way they're making money off it. And the guys who design flyers and t-shirts, that's how we need to sort of take control back of what we're doing and why we're connecting with so many people like you. So when we have these events, these annual festivals that we want to do, and we want to make them mobile, so we can do them at one point on the East Coast, then in the Midwest, then in the West Coast, then in South America, then in Europe, then in Italy, we can make a mobile annual festival where we're all participating and we're all giving back to the communities that we're performing and working in. We have to create that model. Nobody else can figure out how to do it but us. And this is why we're here. So I think we're all saying the same thing again from different perspectives. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, for me, it's about also just I come from the situation of South Africa where everybody was like, yo, Mandela and freedom, and then suddenly it's not what was the original plan, right? So I see a similarity with what is often sold as being the solution, often sold as being a more than what it actually is, So for me, it's about like the anticipation of how can we, as a culture, be prepared, both with the young people that we work with, but other people's children as well, that there's a drive to get people to look at all of the information. If someone's teaching b-boying somewhere and one of the members of Chosen Zulu or Zulu Union or any other organization can go to that place and say, yo, in order for you to teach this, here's some more information, because you want to bring about the change that is necessary in young people's, expression that is not destructive. Because it will end up being like, yo, I did b-boying, but it was the negativity attached to that experience. And I feel like there's so much more that can, and because I've moved in that circles with the b-boys and, Battle of the Year and R16, and I've raised money for more than 200 young kids to travel globally from South Africa. And it's a hell of a travel, And in the process, I've seen it impact their lives and change their perception. But I've also seen the negative of, like, they go to this event where there's 15,000 people watching them. They see what life is like in Germany, and they come back to like what they faced with in South Africa. And they're like despondent about like what is the reality? So it's like, how do you prepare them for what is about to take place? How do you prepare them so they don't expect ridiculous outcomes, but like realize that what the steps are necessary to take to survive, and to love what they're doing, or love hip hop and the culture, elements of the culture throughout their life. And that's really what I'm talking about. I understand that, I love what Dizzy is trying to do as well. So definitely props to what's going on.
Definitely.
I think the culture.
L1, pardon me for a second, brother. I got my brother L1 on here. He hasn't been on the call in a while. So I'd like to hear from you, brother. How you feeling? What's going on? What do you think?
Peace. Peace to everybody. Peace to Emile. Congratulations on the book. I wish you nothing but success. And I just want to give you your flowers, brother. What you're doing is incredible for the continent. It's incredible for the culture. And, we appreciate and we're honored to be learning from you and building with you. And hopefully we're able to assist you in with some of your work. I think, like, I look back to the Zulu Infinity lessons when I hear you speaking, and I think about what is the job of a Zulu. And in the Infinity lessons for the Zulu Nation when we were young, it stated that the job of a Zulu is to survive in life. And I think hip hop culture helped us survive in life because it gave us something to gravitate to. It gave us something to keep us off the streets, whether it was, standing in front of the mirror and freestyling, staying home while people were doing foolish things and you want to perfect your craft, whether it was DJing, b-boying, writing some cold raps, whatever it is. The culture literally has saved lives. And, what you're talking about is it's uniting different people from different backgrounds across the world. So it's an amazing thing to hear, and even more amazing to witness it, as a part of the culture for so many years. Many of us we all have our own different lanes within hip hop, whether it's dealing with the youth directly and showing them knowledge of self, showing them knowledge of the culture, or if it's, showing that b-boy some different techniques and stuff like that. So, it's just like, it's amazing just to hear how global the culture is, because a lot of us here, especially those of us from New York, it's a bad thing where we just trapped in this little bubble with being from New York, thinking that we're the epicenter because we're the, you know, the home team for hip hop. But hip hop has really expanded so much further on different levels throughout the world. You know, I look at like just different areas in the United States of America, and I'm just amazed at how much different events are going on throughout the world. And I think New York is just like focused on, you know, the culture is just like it should be further, being that we started the culture, you know, and I think New York needs to get back on track. But you know, that's another topic. I just wanted to give you brothers and sisters the love and the respect. I think everyone's made some great points. And you know, we're here to learn and build with you all. Peace, family.
Definitely appreciate that. And yeah, I think I agree with L1. It's like, and we've all seen it before. We get, when you see something regularly, you get used to it. It's not that special to you anymore. And, you know, I wrote an article a while ago called The Gods of Hip Hop in New York, and it's part of the reason why. But to say this is that it's sort of like Rome and Greece, right? Where they were these primary cultures that built things, you know, that the rest of the world looked at, but then they got abandoned and fell, and the empire fell, right? And so what happens is the other cultures around Greece and Rome and Egypt learned from what Greece, Rome, and Egypt did, and they started building it better. Then we got Italy, and we got Venice, and we got, you know, Spain, and all these places that sort of built off the architecture and things that they learned from these powerful cultures that existed, while the cultures themselves that sort of innovated it fell. And it's sort of what happened with hip hop, where in New York, it started here, but when it spread to other places, they appreciated it because this was something new and they needed. So they took it to the next level. While for us, it became regular, you know. And part of the way that I equate it to those ancient cultures is that, like the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, they sort of said they had this first-hand connection with the gods, right? But in all their stories and myths, we see how the gods micromanage them, right? To put it short, the gods were always interfering with them, sabotaging them, messing up their events, their cultures, coming in the form of a woman and getting them pregnant so their wife leaves them. Like the gods were always putting their fingers in the middle of it, and it's why it was like they were micromanaging. It happened similarly in New York, you know, where especially when it comes to the Zulu family, the Zulu chapters were pretty much micromanaged by the men and women who consider themselves gods of hip hop. So they were always like, you can't do that over there, or you got to give us 10% before you do, or you got to get permission for you. Or no, don't do that. Let me do that. And this is how it's sort of about Seattle's like, boom, they're blowing up. They're doing events. They got DVD. They got Florida. They got clubs. They got night, you know, stands. And in New York, we're trying to do it, but we can't. And it also created this era of competition between chapters that are supposed to be part of the same organization, where we should be collaborating, working with each other to build these things. And it was like, nah, I like what they're doing, but we're gonna do it better. We're gonna do it this way. And again, this is why for me, it was like, when I stepped back, I was like, why do these cycles keep repeating? And I had to look back to what we talked about earlier, the battle within, the battle between our own higher selves and our dark side. And for some of our elders, you touched on it too, it's a little bit of ego where they want to be the first, or they want to be in control, or they want to get the proceeds from it in their pocket and then distribute it. And these things made it more difficult for us to do that when we're trying to do it on another level, you know. And this is why, again, I don't blame them, I don't fault them. I look at the reality that they were young teenagers with not the best education, figuring it out. It's like they didn't even think they could make money when they started this. Understand that when the first b-boys and DJs and MCs started doing this, it had nothing to do with money. They didn't think they could make money. They were charging 25 cents to get into the damn party. Where was the money in that? You know what I mean? So they were doing it for the love. It wasn't until a record label signed this group that they were like, oh shit, we can make money at this? And then they started trying to figure out how to do what they needed to do to make money, not to own the company or the business. They were trying to make money. So when they got $5,000, that's all they got. To them, it was heaven. Meanwhile, this company owns the royalties and is selling it in Germany and France and Libya and Afghanistan, and you got $5,000. You think you're good. You know, MC Shah Rock talks the story where she says she didn't even know that the records existed. She went overseas to Germany and saw one of her records with her name on it in Germany. And she wasn't getting nothing off of it. And this is part of the battle that she's taking. But again, look, she's, you know, I don't want to shout her age out, but she's our age. And it took her this long to realize that's my money. That's owed to me. They didn't compensate me for that. Because when she was 16, 17 years old, they gave her $5,000. That's all she knew about. So it's on us now to start understanding this and teaching it again, why we put it together in the fundamentals and we explain the aspects of the industry, because it's a business, not to capitulate to it, but to teach us how to take ownership of it, own your masters, be your management company, your publishing company, create your own network for distribution, which is something that we're trying to do here. If we could distribute his book in America and Africa and South America and Philippines and Australia, we can become this. And this is why we're doing what we're doing now. Yeah.
Yeah, to build on what you said, about New York in particular, that's one of the main reasons why the museum was a focus, is because that's one of the last stages New York has to do, is to retell the matrix, right? To put it in a crystallized form. Because I'll give you one of the biggest problems in hip hop right now is when you say hip hop, the average person, or when you say rapper, I mean, to the average person, they automatically consider rap and hip hop the same thing, or they don't see that rap is inside of hip hop. So that's like the terminology itself needs to be crystallized in a dictionary sense. Because a certain thing, even like, okay, you would have like a big meeting with a big event, big promoter gonna happen, something's gonna happen, something big's gonna happen. You're talking some legends and everybody's there and big competition better go on. And then someone mistakenly says breakdance. Right?
Right.
And you have a big promoter sitting there, dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you stop the discussion. You interrupt the meeting now, right? And you're arguing about a word. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah. So these people you were bringing there to support your thing, and they're watching big man argue over. So you know what I mean? So my question has always been, I said, I want anybody to hold a breaking competition, but you're not allowed to dance then. Don't dance. I just want breaking, but don't dance. I want somebody to hold that competition. Hold the competition. You're not allowed to dance, but you can break. I want to see it.
Definitely. We had B-Boy Pluto on a couple of weeks with us. He gave us a whole B-Boy history.
You know what I mean?
He explained the difference between
it is a dance. You know what I mean?
B-boying and break dancing and breaking, So it was very important. Like you said, most people don't understand that, because popular term, they said break dancing. Pluto explained that breaking or B-boying is just B-boying. And then everything else, the pop-in, lock-in, robot, that's break dance. And these are the things that we have to be the generation to crystallize that difference.
Terminology, break down the terminology. But I think the main one is the rap and hip hop one, where the average person, if you say rap or they're talking about rapper, or no, you mentioned hip hop,
or you say hip hop, they think rap, right?
They automatically 50 Cent pops into their head, and that's a very dangerous thing to the culture. That, in the sense of that's now back to what you're saying, Emile, where the corporations take advantage. That's a perfect example of that. We're not, us as hip hop, we're not even correcting that. But the people should be knowing that hip hop is a culture. That should be like at the forefront of whoever's participating. You know what I mean?
Well,
just to let that
I will
slide.
say this though. You're right. They weren't correcting it for a while, but we are. That's why we are having these sessions and whatnot, and we're doing this. And I appreciate your energy and whatnot, but we are going to get close to wrapping up soon. So I do want to get a little bit of feedback from some of the other people, namely the brother King Fat, Jason Kirkman. I'd love to hear your thoughts, feedback.
Peace. How's everybody doing? Peace to the fam.
Peace, brother.
Hey, Emile, I'm gonna go ahead and you know what I'm saying, let me know how I can get that thing. I'm just adding to my hip hop library. Appreciate your work. As a co-author, I know the spirit science. Now that I know where you are spiritually, I know you know what it took to write the book. So first of all, kudos to that. It's a long process. Like, I'm an MC as well. Writing a book is it's a totally different animal. You know what I'm saying? So I know what it took. I know how long these things take, and given the rest of your life you had to do while doing it. So kudos to that, first of all. First, and another thing, what I want to say is that we've we in hip hop, I mean, even when I was in the Zulu Nation, we've all been kind of talking about the same thing we're talking about now. And y'all know me. If you know me by now, y'all know I'm culture first. My brand is Culture Chronicles. That's my brand. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely about the culture first. It's a little concept I came up with because I'm about to write the revised version of my book. And it's one of the issues is how the like the 79 era, when, like Prism say, our elders were fumbling, they were young, they were fumbling, and the media quickly took a grasp to it or whatever. It just made me realize how, okay, well, outside people came to document it first. So and then the first people who was giving them the information, we're still talking about the information not even being correct. And that's because of the celebrityism of, I think, the nature of our elders that came out. So like Prism said, they had to start fumbling the record industry. And so now now their whole goal is that. And I think even in the organizations, like Prism was saying, and I really feel for what the core New York chapter was going through. Big up the L1 up in here too. Peace and blessings. Zulu Union forever. You already know what it is. Big up L1. The more I've been around in 2020 with the Union fam, the more I realized the real issue. I didn't even realize that y'all were going through the same thing that we're going through in New York. They're actually New York chapters going through the same thing, and we thinking y'all good because y'all got the elders with you. You know what I mean? And but we realize now that, okay, the elders were on something different than what we're on now. So we're definitely the generation to do it. But before we even can continue to talk about any other elements for real, that's why I like your book. I already see where it's going. We need to figure out a way to, we have to begin to organize all of these things. We talked about a glossary in the Zulu Union meeting a couple months back. We talked about starting a blueprint, a actual vocabulary for hip hop. But a governing body is necessary. We've talked about land tonight. We've talked about everything from civics. We've talked about land ownership. Like, you know, a lot of us here in America are not actually slaves brought over. A lot of us are Native Americans. So some of us here, we've learned are actually, and if you really even look at international law, the Europeans that are here in the Western Hemisphere are still settlers, technically, on land that does not belong to them. You know what I mean? And so we need to begin to first establish that. That's how hip hop needs to start looking, like a government, like an organized body of intellectuals, those of us right now that we're starting, that can present these elements in a body first that speaks the nature of a government, that speaks the nature of a college. But it's definitely our nature, but it's definitely us talking to them. You know what I mean? We need to be the ones talking to them. Like we were talking about the B-boy thing earlier. I feel like, okay, B-boys in the Olympics, they're right. B-boys need to be organized in schools. Schools need to have B-boy teams. There needs to be like gymnastics. Gymnastics have, even though the Olympics is only what, twice or every 4 years, there's championships, there's championship tournaments, organized tournaments that everybody in the gymnastics community know they got to get through to even get to the Olympics. So those are the kind of things that we need to begin discussing, you know, at least blueprinting, because that's all we can do right now is begin discussing. It's in the air. It's going to happen. We're here. We're doing it. It's happening. You know what I mean? I just want to remind everybody of that too. It's definitely happening. I can feel it. But we got to begin looking at hip hop more as a governing body. Because if we can look at people and tell people, all right, no, before we talk about b-boying, we got to buy the land so that we can get the building. And then we can do what Prism was talking about earlier, house all of that and create our infrastructure, our commerce and everything. And then start drawing up documentation with our symbols on it to start giving to organizations like the United Nations in the future. So our children can be taking up documents like, no, this is hip hop. This is what it is. Oh, it's here. This is the flag. This is the duh. This is this. This is that. We got to slowly begin talking on that thing. You know what I mean? Because we all right. Everybody, you know, going over how hip hop is just, you know, the rap thing. We've been doing that now for a long time. I was in the 12 years old, straight up. I've been going through camps just like you, Emile, going through camps, inner cities, colleges, breaking that down, you know, breaking that fact down still. You know what I mean? And but before we do that, we need to look like a culture, because they can just see, they can get us with the elements. They can get the money. You know what I mean? They can leech us with the elements, expose it, put it on camera. Somebody can just grab it and do all that. But the culture, that's something they can't do. If we organize ourselves as a culture, i.e. future literal international recognized governing body with land and that kind of recognition, then we will do anything. If we take care of the needs of our people, then they'll follow us to the moon. They'll learn every b-boy move and every break beat known to man if we take care of their needs first. And that's it. But we on our way, man. So big up to the fam. Love y'all. We need to become a government. Make a long story short.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
I feel you. I feel you.
Definitely.
And real quick, Emile, I don't know how much you had. You wanted to go through the next part, and we can.
Yeah, I just want to touch on some of the other stuff that I mean, essentially seeing that the conversation was about land, we have a lot of the work that we're doing at the schools is creating the kids, showing them that the creation can manifest, so one of the questions that the kids had that I teach, that I created a practical hip hop school where kids have been with me since 2005. So they're grown men who have kids themselves now. And the teaching has been cyclic, right? So they toured with me, they learned from me, and I also watched them in order for me to learn if it's working. Because that, I think sometimes education is very linear. It's like I tell you and then that's it. It's not like, is it working? Are you, And so in the process, the question arose, like, why do they have to give up what they love? And the biggest thing is always, one, they want to obviously start a family, and two, they need a place to live, right? So they need definite income to have a place to live. So we were saying, by action and experience, we've been teaching. So by action and experience, can I break down the mathematics of survival that I use to buy my own house, my own car, and I don't own the bank jack shit, and can do whatever the hell I want at this point in my life? Till I got married and had kids, so now I've got to change that up. But like that same technique I use is to be like, how do we use the mathematics of survival and this idea that I created, which was diversifying your creative and your income stream. So if I'm able to rap, I can write, and when I write, I can create a book. If I can create a book, I can create a play. If I create a play, I can create lines that are on t-shirts that are thought-provoking. So the possibilities expand to not just I want this job, but I have all of these forms of income, right? So once I showed them that, they implemented to like start doing extra jobs to earn income, right? And so now with Heal the Hood, because we're in the schools, we're showing this, trying to show the school that before we used to send you to Battle of the Year, we're not doing that no more, because we don't own the plane, we don't own the hotels. We're going to now raise that money. We're going to buy land and we're going to build a center where there's a museum, right? So as soon as we said that, like people have been like, yo, we gotta get on this.
Yeah.
While I was saying and taking that action, a friend of mine in Johannesburg saw what we were doing, created the South African Hip Hop Museum, which is up and running. It is, obviously it's COVID, so people can't access it. But because of the action, they saw what we were able to do. And I think this is the thing about the culture, is like once we show the kids more than like talk to them, it's much more powerful than any words can, you know what I mean? This is what we if any father or parent will tell you, your kids follow what you do, not what you say, So I feel like hip hop has been saying a lot, and it's time to, to manifest those creations, And so with this book and all of the other products we created at the school, we breaking it down financially, how many products we need to sell to buy the land, build the house. And once we implement that, we are able to say hip hop built this. And we're able to show them how to take it to each province throughout South Africa, and for us to then have a way to tour and have a venue in each province to tour throughout the country, And like, if you think about it, this is what globally is a possibility, with the ability to, and this is one of the chapter 16 of the book is called The Mathematics of Survival and Diversifying Income and Creative Streams. Because often, I give you one last example. I toured schools and I asked kids to look around the wall to name one thing that an artist created. And the kid was like, And there's always this one kid, you know, that guy that they have drawn up, the exit guy, that every building has the exit guy. And that's always, they're like, yo, that's art, the artist did that. And then I'm like, yeah, but look carefully. And slowly but surely, like kids will say, oh, her earrings, the spectacles frames, the t-shirt, the jacket, the hoodie, the beanie, the table. And then eventually they say the building. And for the first time, that entire wall realized that creativity created every fucking thing around us. But when you ask your mother that you want to be a creative, she says, find a real job.
Right.
Now, why I do this is because I make the kids realize that their creativity has power to manifest anything that they want to if they see it as power. So when I show them the wall was built by someone that's creative, they're like, oh, damn, I could create this. I have the power to create this if I look at it through a creative lens. And so for me, it's like, how do you show young people that they can manifest with creation or the ability to create anything they wish? Because that's the power, right? I mean, if you think of what's his name, Stan Lee, that created that Marvelous, this dude is able to draw and think about what he drew. But if your kid draws amazingly, you tell your kid, yo, you better have a backup. Why? Why do we do that when people have that godlike ability to actually manifest their creation? So I'll end on that and say that our intention is to, in the next, it's actually the last chapter of the book is a challenge. It's called The Plan. By 2026, we want to have the building, the land paid for, the building built, and manifest what I'm speaking about. So putting my neck out on this one, but I think it's necessary that we take action on what we speak, you know.
True. And to clarify, that is what you're using proceeds from the book towards that project, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
All right. And again, I put up the image of the book on it, and it includes the PayPal. That is correct, right? They can PayPal. You send the money to PayPal there, and they can get the book.
Yeah, they can also do I just found out that there's the Zelle, Zelle. Yeah, that also you can just use my Emile YX at Gmail. And, that way I think they don't charge on the exchange and the transfer, So yeah, I'm learning as I'm going about trying to move the book here in the US.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, let me see. Anybody else that hasn't, Tal, Trey, Malik?
I just want to say, how do I get the physical copy right quick? That's it. How would I get that?
I'm actually posting it out so people can use the Zelle, and then I'll just mail me your postal address and I'll post it to you. I just posted out like 30 in the last week. So yeah, definitely.
All right, no doubt.
Also, I believe in the PayPal, when you make the payment there, it asks for an address, so you can put in your address there and then let them know there also.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to go around, Eridu, I haven't heard much from you tonight. How are you doing, brother? How are you feeling? You're on mute.
Doing fine. How's everybody? Awesome discussion. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt. There's so many topics.
You were showing you were showing the vinyl. What was the vinyl? I was like trying to see what vinyls you were showing.
First of all, that's my good friend the band of 1988 with DJ C. Just. These are records that inspired me from early, because there's a lot of talent here. First of all, I wanted to say hi to Fats and the rest of you guys out here. And everything you were talking about, from the culture and how the culture's developed and who developed it and how are things developed. These are things we do in education. In education, there's many theories. There's a lot of theories. There's theories in hip hop as well. Everything from an action, the action theory, that's very prevalent in hip hop culture. Of course, it's not talked about, but it is talked about and described through different modes, everything from b-boying to breaking to graffiti to rapping to spoken word, all of it. And I'm amazed that there's like the theme tonight, this history of hip hop culture. I've been in it for 41 years, since 1980. And before that, there was a prehistory that existed that I had nothing to do with, because I didn't grow up with that. But it's amazing how there's so many subject matters. The fact that a museum is being built is a big deal. It is a very big deal, and everybody should give their hand of applause, because I'll tell you, was this even possible 41 years ago? I wonder, was that in the minds of these young b-boys and break dancers and graffiti artists and DJs? I don't know. But Prism, you mentioned a lot of great points. The fact is that you are the guardians of the history. In fact, let me just say this: you are developing, constructing, framing the history now. The history was accumulated 41 years ago, even 50 years ago, but it's being now monitored. It's going to be reviewed. You have what I suggest, like Fats was saying, it's the government. You better believe, and I told this to, I tell you something, you are a government. We are a government of people. Are we recognized yet? Not really, until, like Fats said, Fats is correct. You have to have the documentation. Like you were saying, Emile, you have to be a landowner. My goodness, you have all of that. Guess what? No one can say anything. If you're a culture, by the way, the key thing is we are a culture, just like Puerto Rican culture, Sumerian. I'm a Sumerian, I'm a Sumer. I'm from Babylon, I'm from Shem. Sumer and Shem are one and the same name. Shumu is known through all over the world. That's a culture. Egyptian, Mitzrayim is a culture. Kushite is a culture. Where hip hop's a culture too. The fact it's designated that's a big deal. We have some great talent. Malik One. This guy's, congratulations on your Jewish doctorate degree. That's going to be very helpful, because when you are, we need lawyers. We need lawyers that know policy. We need people like Fats that know that are delving into the curriculum and stating we need to have a curriculum, part of the Common Core in history and a part of the Common Core in education. Damn right we do. I'm part of that. I want to help you guys build that, because I'm in a PhD in education, and I want to be a voice of the culture in Washington, D.C. After my PhD, I'm going to get a doctorate degree and be a lawyer, and I want to work for the Senate. That's my goal. We'll see what happens with all your help, but I have to say we're on the right track. We are on the right track. We really are, and it's you guys, all of you guys. Everyone come from different cultures here. I'm from the West Coast. I never grew up in New York. I grew up in a time when I was being exposed to the technology, everything from mixers to samplers, and to how it has progressed to now. I've seen the development of all these things, and it's fascinating. And not only that, but the talent, like L from Zulu just stated, hip hop has advanced. It has expanded. Man, you're damn right it has. 41 years ago, how many people 41 years ago, if any of you were, if you're probably in your 40s, you probably remember, what was the first rap record you ever heard? You know, for me, it was King Tim III, Fatback. People say, that's disco. Doesn't matter. He was still talking over the record. And like you said, we have to develop a vocabulary, Fats. You damn right you better update it too. You're correct. I agree with all of that. A vocabulary has to be, I remember back 41 years ago when vocabulary was being invented. I remember people like calling that fresh. This, if you ever look at old magazines, and even in 1978, Billboard magazine, 1978, when one of the first scholars was talking about urban disco, and then they connected it with rap. And then this was what it was called, but the terminology is still ever growing. And man, if you can get a fine definition of what things are called, and you have that locked in, no one can mess with you. We are, you know what? I don't know if you guys know it. We are founding and framing for the first time to be recognized by not only society, but by the Department of Justice, by the United Nations, and they see us, like Fats said, we are there. That's a hip hop culture. We gotta wait a minute. That's hip hop culture right there. Just like Puerto Rican culture, Taino culture, Sumerian, Egyptian, Kush. Man, what a creative idea that is. If Elon Musk can send people to Mars, guess what we can do? We can have our own government, just like Nimrod had. Before Nimrod, it was Cain. Cain, Tubal Cain had a government. They invented it. And the music history that you were talking about, the drum and the development of music and chanting, that all came from Jubal. Jubal was the founder of music. He's the founder of brass and instruments. It's because of him we have a harp. Because of him we have a piano. And it built from there. And so, my God, this is going to expand within the mind. I'll tell you what, I see this as a government is big. You know what? Not only that, it's going to be a universal government. 50 years from now, we're going to be the United States. Hip hop will rule. I see that in 50 years, maybe 25 years.
I agree with that one. It's the only thing that unified everybody.
And people like Fast, people like Prism, people like everyone here. We all have a vision. Guess what? And like Emile was saying, that vision's inside us. Let's go ahead and manifest it physically. And it's going to happen. It's already happening. We're here as a think tank to design that culture and what goes in that culture. How, it's to see it develop. What you guys, the Children of Zulu, is doing. Much respect. Much respect.
Definitely appreciate
and
that.
So, in my role, and all I am as an educator, is part of that preservation of the history, and that's it. And my goal is to get Chosen Zulu and every one of all the talent that's in here into the school system. That's the first thing. That's what my job is going to be doing. Is going to the agencies over here in the West Coast, going to people like Boys and Girls Club, going to the school districts and having Sir Malik One's book as a textbook, as a mandatory requirement in a classroom. I mean, like Fats was saying several weeks back, he's correct. We have to have a common core curriculum, and hip hop's going to be a part. You know what? It's not that far. You're not that far away from it. And Emile,
just to
I can
remind
see
you guys,
you.
Sir Malik was on the call earlier, reminding you guys that he was one of the guys that helped write the Declaration of Peace. And in that Declaration of Peace, it states the necessity for a hip hop guild. He's one of the men that was instrumental including that into the Declaration. Not only did he include that in the Declaration, he's already started writing the outline for the guild. You know what I mean? For like what we call the Hip Hop History Collective that we started, that I told you, Brother Fats is part of, Brother Eridu, Eric Morgado is part of, Sir Malik, Emile, I'm inviting you to join that collective. He's creating the outline for that guild to be an official LLC nonprofit organization with the outline, the dogma that we can start presenting to the school systems, the Board of Education, and so on and so forth. So that's why I said these are the beginnings of the conversations where we're going to start forming that. Eridu, I do appreciate, as you can see, he has much passion, much wisdom, much intelligence, but we are getting ready to wrap it up. So I do want to get, I'll let a couple of other people that were here speak a little bit. Brother Ty, I don't know how much you've heard or how much you can relate to. Tyler Stockton, you with us?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Peace. This is the
Awesome.
brother I was telling about from the First Nation, from, up around Canada, Alaska, correct?
Yeah, just south of Alaska.
You got to share the link to the documentary one day, man. I really want to watch it.
Right.
Documentary on his tribe, on his culture, for being one of the last surviving First Nation tribes out there. And he showed me just a clip of it. And I was like, damn it, where can I watch it? I need to see it, man. I want to watch it. So you got to share that with us.
Nice.
Yeah. So I when I hear you guys talking about this stuff, I think of my own culture, right? Of course, and I think about especially you're talking about going to the Olympics for b-boying, and when I heard you talking about since you're going there, they should be giving back to the culture, right? In a bigger way than they are. And what happened on my islands, I come from Haida Gwaii, which is it's south of Alaska. It's its own little island archipelago of 150 islands. And what happened was they came up there, just like some museums, actually it was universities at the time, the University of British Columbia, came up there and took as they pleased. Pretty much, they took everything that was left over from after the smallpox came and ran through all the villages, and everybody was sort of concentrated into 2 different reserves on Haida Gwaii. I'm from one of those reserves, and but they took all the artifacts, right? They took all the art and they put it into their own personal treasury. That's now called the museum. It's now called the Museum of Anthropology. But the thing about that is, like, when you look at how much Haida art is in UBC's treasury, it's probably worth more than our village, right? It's probably worth more than our reserve, like, and we don't get any kickback from that at all. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear you talking passionately about the culture of hip hop, then that's what I vision too, because we go through those kinds of things, you know. So it's a real honor to be here with you guys and to hear you talk about these things so passionately. It's something that we don't really get exposed to. Like, somebody was talking about like how you say rap and then somebody's mind goes to 50 Cent. Like, that's exactly where we were at over here. Like, we only got channel 26. That was the music channel when I was growing up. And so we got the 50 Cent, we got the Nelly, we got the whatever, Eminem was on there, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And that's fine to a degree. But as soon as I discovered underground hip hop, like, that fucking changed everything, you know? Like, that changed my entire perception of what the culture was. Actually gave me a perception that there was a culture at all, you know? Like, before that, I was like, okay, this is just music. This is just like flashy stuff. So actually, so Eric is a big part of the reason why I'm here, because I was affiliated with Lord Gamma. So this is just like all coincidence, right? Like, I kind of got like dragged into this in a way, and so like I'm extremely fucking happy about that. Yeah, and I just look forward to seeing this all unfold.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciate
Lord Gamma, if we ever know, Lord Gamma is a producer who actually placed. So Lord Quads, who is in here, Trevor, thank you very much for giving me my start with Stranger Danger. I had 41 years until 41 years later, they gave me my start as a producer while nobody else would. Why? I don't know. I might have been whack. Who knows? But, you know, they gave me my start. Thank you.
Definitely. And speaking of Chaos, he's still on the line with us. I know you have made some statements in the chat room. Anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up? Chaos?
I have one thing I can say, if you don't mind. As far as back to the conversation of them taking it from us, right? You'll bring it back to martial arts, for instance. That's the same thing. Like, they Hollywood did this, all kinds of stuff, made all kind of exploitation off of Kung Fu. They don't stop the Chinese from holding their shit down. They don't rely on no one else to teach their people the Kung Fu thing. You know what I mean? They ain't worried about Hollywood, whether they're gonna show you Kung Fu proper or the Taoism and the Zen. They're not concerned with whether you put that in your movie or their exploitation of Kung Fu. But they make sure that the Kung Fu stays intact. And that was whole Bruce Lee stance on it and the whole thing. So we have to have that same level of dedication on teaching and those things about that. Even if the forces of the corporation come, we still have to have that reserve and fortitude.
Exactly. I appreciate that. You're absolutely right. And that's what we're trying to do here. Definitely get in touch with me after the meeting. I definitely love to build with you and see more how we can help add to these conversations. I appreciate your input today. Thank you very much for joining.
Respect it.
Chaos.
Always leave the meetings with a lot of information. It was another really good meeting. Emile, congratulations on the book. I can't wait to get a copy of that and check it out. The conversations just really, really hit tonight. I don't know how qualified to answer this as much as everybody else, but I'm probably one of the younger people on the meeting, and to hear what everybody's talking about is reassuring in my own path. And I think everybody really has the right mindset for going forward and really taking this thing head on and really getting hip hop organized. I don't know, you organize some of the best people for these meetings, Prism.
I appreciate it. I mean, they make themselves available, and that's what we can be thankful to them for. These brothers have been doing the work for years.
And the fact that they're, I was checking out Emile's pages, and I just didn't realize, how well known he is, and it's just like blowing my mind. I forgot his name, but like you said, it's an honor to have these people and an honor to have you as a part of this, because that influence alone is going to help carry weight with Chosen, and us working together really bring more light to everything. And I really look forward to getting more involved with all of this. I started with listening to rap and then getting involved with it and just music generally, but hip hop is it has my heart, and I owe it to do what I can for it. And I probably couldn't do it all. And I learn a lot from everybody that talks, and that it really influences things. And I don't know. I think we're just on a solid path. Yeah.
Definitely. No, I appreciate that. And for those that don't know, Chaos is another brother that Eric brought in from the ESF Cypher whatnot. So, he's another brother that's definitely doing the work and bringing in quality people. So thank you, brothers, for joining and contributing. We appreciate that. Malik, Matthew, Trey, either one of you available? All right, and of course, last but not least, the brother that's been here from the beginning, Joselito Guerrero. What do you think of tonight's meeting?
Peace, man. Even though I don't talk much, but I'm just listening to everybody. I'm learning like so much. Like there's so much to hip hop. I actually grew up in 183rd Street here in the Bronx, between Lauren Place, between Sedgwick and Andrews. So that's where and yeah, I know a lot. So it's just that hip hop has a lot of like resources. Like it's just not about music. It's not just about those things, but it's more. You know what I'm saying? Like it helps the young people, stay in the positive path and stuff like that. I was gonna say that we are all chosen, and we all have a purpose, and we all gotta take a journey and find out what it is. And it's never too late to do good. You know what I'm saying? It's never too late to accomplish something. There's no age, there's no limit. You know what I'm saying? Like I done seen a lot of people like 60, 70 still going to college. So it's like whatever it is that we got to do, if it's music, if it's rap, if it's dancing, it's graffiti, it's art, whatever it is, like there's no limit. We just got to keep going forward. You know what I'm saying? And just get better at it. And if you're trying to do something and it's not coming out right, or it's not for you, there's got to be something else. We got to keep persevering. We got to keep use our talents, use our to give. You know what I'm saying? To help, to live. You know what I'm saying? And hip hop is deep. You know what I'm saying? Spiritually, it's I used to rap before. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't the best, but it led me to a path where I actually started writing Christian rap songs. And I was like, you know what? Since I love God, let me rap about God, and I started doing that. And music is powerful. You know what I'm saying? Music could uplift you. It could bring you up. It could bring you down. So I always believe hip hop has always got to be positive. You know what I'm saying? I would like to spit a verse real quick if you want to hear something.
Sure, I'm down for it.
Hey.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, G-Boy.
Huh?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
All right. I'm listening a little bit of. All right.
Go on.
So it goes like this. It goes, God loves is eternal. You can't trust the devil. You might end up burning yourself with your own shovel. Satan is a liar, but Christ is the only Messiah. Bring your tears of love for those that hear his thoughts. United together, we'll bring souls to the altar. Yes, Lord, I'm a soldier. Lead me and guide me, because the one I was before, no more. Keep preparing me for the spiritual war. Representing for one and only heavenly spiritual Lord. Spiritual cause, spiritual wars. When I walk through the door, I'm going to praise my Lord.
Nice lyrics.
Peace. I appreciate that.
Peace, man. I mean, it's different things,
Definitely. No, I appreciate me some gospel rap. There's really some really great gospel rap groups out that are not just doing a good job of, talking about God in the lyrics, but they're lyrical, they're skilled, they have metaphors, they have wit, they have delivery and charisma. The Cross Movement is a group from PA. It's like 4 or 5 MCs. Flame, Trey Lee, Trip Lee, rather. The Truth. There's so many really good gospel rappers. If you don't know about it, check it out. These brothers, like some of them sound like that's what Lil Wayne could sound like if he tried. that's what Jay-Z could sound like if he tried type shit. For real, for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, man. Thank you for sharing that with us, brother.
No problem.
Hey, Prism,
Yeah.
Prism. You ever heard Prism? You ever heard and the other cat that was just rapping Christian hip hop? You know, I got into Christian hip hop in 1990. The first and people like D-Boy and then Enoch from Crossman. I know those guys, and Sector 7, Lord Metatron. These guys go back about 30 years in Christian hip hop, about 1990. And I was I used to sample Bible story records, and I still have a track. And I got into Christian hip hop in 1990, and
Wow.
it's a very, very great movement. I'll tell you, there's some great MCs in town, like you said, Prism. Have you ever heard of Sector 7?
I heard the name. I can't say I've heard any of their songs. But hey, who knows? Gospel rap might be a conversation we might bring up one day for one of our discussions. I think it's a very pressed on area, and it's not all about, Christ like you think it was. It's more about the philosophy and the teachings and the understanding of the Bible. They do, like, some of them hit me in the head with the way they put things in poetry. It's just a beautiful eulogy. If you never heard of them, check out the duo called Beautiful Eulogy. It's poetry, but it's powerful, and it's just like, sometimes I have to rewind it a couple of times because I'm like, whoa, like, what did he just say? That was some deep philosophical stuff he said right there in a simple rhyme. Beautiful Eulogy, amazing group, poetic. It's like, it's almost like gospel, but with rap and poetry, and they're very technical with their words.
Yeah, Prism, the first gospel quartet group of all time. Who were they? The Jubilaries, 1947.
Right. Also some of the earliest rappers in the culture. If you never checked them out,
I think it's 37. 37, you mean?
30. It was around
37, you mean?
40. Right. Yeah, the songs and the videos that we saw were from 41, 42, but they were doing it before that. Correct.
Yeah.
But
The first rhyme. They sound just like Raptor Delight,
Yeah,
like,
they were doing
the rapping pattern,
Yeah, 30, 40 years earlier.
It'd be hard to say. It would be hard to convince me. People never heard that before,
Right.
Definitely.
But to keep it short, like, all of us here, we can go all night. We can keep these conversations going, I'm sure. But I want to give the floor back to our guest speaker. Final thoughts, final statement. Emile.
Yeah, man. I need to go and make supper.
Right.
No, I thanks for the opportunity to share the content of the book and also just feedback. It's really, while I was writing it, there was already, a couple of people like Sami Alim and Casey Wong from Stanford that were, going through it, and helped me to steer me to other people's writings, But often it's also about, like, while I'm having conversations with you guys, I realize there's so much more that that can be added to, and so it's always being open to learn and actually remembering, like you're saying right now, is that the story is being written, and we need to encourage more people to do that, to tell their own stories. And I just had a conversation with someone this afternoon. I don't know if you guys know Polsky, that ran an event in the Bay Area. He promotes always a student, and he has recordings of just about almost everyone, that he's gone around. And my first thing to say to him was, like, this information needs to be out, because in order for us to actually set up this foundational sharing of information, we need to have access to first people's conversations, the first people that did certain things in the communities, so you can hear their voices telling the story in their voices. And they are around, a lot of them, and those who have left have been recorded. So we need to find this and put it out, and in the bigger scheme of things, have our own printing press, because that's a big part of it, like having our own printing press so that we can get the word out there, our own radio stations, our own information media, because that's the only way you're going to challenge what exists. They were able to make rap that's why I was saying earlier, when they think hip hop, they think rap, because the people that control the narrative is not us, and in order for us to change that, as you guys say, as a government, you need your own minister of information. You need your own media outlet to change perception. You know, not only education but also this media outlet to create the information that's necessary to bring about the change. So I'm excited to see all these things manifest. You know, and for us to put this information out there and to help others to find the spaces where they can share this information with more people. You know, so yeah, thanks for listening and. Thanks for sharing. Being always educational.
Definitely. Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. Again, like I said, we can always get the book and talk about it amongst ourselves, but it's not very often we get to spend time with the author themselves. And again, to complete such, a detailed work is no easy feat. So we acknowledge you, we commend you, we thank you, we honor you for your contribution to hip hop as a whole, and for taking the time to speak with us and document your story, as we're doing nowadays. And I remind you, it goes back to everything we mentioned before that, like he said, this book is about connecting us to our roots so we become the best versions of ourselves. That is, in fact, the philosophy of being chosen. When we said chosen, it wasn't just the name of a chapter, it was outlined for philosophy. Being chosen means being who you were born to be, being the best version of you, living the life you were meant to live. And like we've all referred to at one point or another, using your talents, your skills, your abilities, your passions that bring joy into your life and the lives of others. That's being chosen. So whether it's being a b-boy or being an educator or being a motivational speaker or a hairstylist or a cook or whatever it is, if that's your passion, that's your interest, that's what God blessed you with the ability to be and do, but it's up to you and choose it. Right. So if he blessed you with the skill to be a brilliant pianist that can play concert halls, but you choose to go smoke crack or weed or dope or heroin instead, that's your choice. We try to remind you that God gave you the gift or the universe or whatever you want to call it, bestowed you with certain interests, certain passions that are unique to you, and a combination of your sense of humor, the way you talk, your culture, your history, your perception that enables you to do and say and create things in a way that is unique to you. It doesn't matter if 10,000 other people are rapping. Nobody's going to put words together the way Josemito Guerrero just put those words together. All those words exist in vocabulary, but nobody put it together the unique way he did. So we encourage you all to tap into your unique passions, your interests, your understanding to become the best version of yourself. With that, we are doing this ourselves as our own company, as our own organization. As of now, we haven't really tried to get any funding. So the only funding we really look at is from you guys. We try to create certain products, certain items, so that way it's relatable to you. So at chosenzulu.com, you can feel free. You don't have to be a member to buy any of these products. You can buy anything on there. It's open for the public. This is how we are able to keep these processes running, keep the website on, keep the events going. We also have a new site we just developed called chosenhiphopwear.com, and that's where you see more clothes and items like this, the cups, the face masks, the neck gaiters. We have posters, banners, all kinds of things. Not very expensive, but anything you can do to support us, to help us keep going, helps us keep the lights on, helps us keep the website up, and helps us keep getting great teachers and authors and educators like we have tonight to come join us at the meeting. So with that being said, again, most of us on here love to talk, love to conversate, especially about this. I'm sure we could all talk to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but this is just an introduction. We're not done yet. We're doing this every 2 weeks. Join us in 2 weeks for another conversation with another great guest speaker. But for those of you that are not already connected with us, join us not only on chosenzulu.com, but on Chosen Zulu on Facebook. That's where we'll keep the updates about any meetings, articles, information. If you guys have interesting articles that you feel are not common knowledge about hip hop history, you can send it to us there. We're happy to share it and become a resource for this type of information with your help and your collaboration. Again, thank you all for everything that you've done for hip hop in your own lives, for being representatives of this culture and this way of life. And this is just the beginning. Now it's our time as the OGs and the educators to take responsibility for this and stop leaving them to teach themselves mumble rap and think that's what hip hop is. It's on us to speak to these mumble rappers and teach them the rest of the culture. If we don't do it, we can't get mad at what they're teaching themselves. So that's why we look at ourselves, not just us, but all of us as the guardians of the hip hop culture. It's our responsibility. Thank you for taking the time. Much respect and appreciation to all of you. See you again soon. Peace, one love, family.
Respect.
Peace.
energy and